All right, so welcome to day two. Now, for those of you who were not around yesterday, there are a couple of things we're looking to cover in these 2 days that can help you to see how easy it is for you to transition into any of the roles that we have, that we were talking about yesterday. So business analysis being one of them, Scrum Master being one of them, and product ownership being another role which you can easily transition to. And then we cover all of these in full details in our bootcamp. But then this course also would give you a very good, it will help you to, number one, for those of you who are just curious, it will help ignite, that curiosity. All right. It'll help ignite the curiosity for you to dig a little bit deeper. And for those of you who are ready to take that step, this is just going to be confirmation that this is something that you can actually handle. So I talked about who we are as the Skill Garage yesterday. Please check the video, I gave you my bio, I told you my story, I told you what this is for. Then we dived into business analysis, what that is about. I gave you a very um, layman description, a layman um, I try to break it down as much as possible so that if you were totally new to this space, all right, to the space of business analysis, it wouldn't be a problem for you to relate with. All right. And then I'm going to do a quick recap of that probably before we move on to the next thing. And then we talked about who a business analyst is and what the business analyst does. Okay. We did all of that. And then we looked at the responsibilities of a BA, and then we introduced the software development lifecycle. All right. At some point today, we'll talk about building a product which would tie in with the software development lifecycle. And then talking about MVPs, talking about Scrum and Kanban, Scrum roles, and the role of certification. We're going to talk about all of these things. All right. So I wouldn't go through all of this again. For those of you who missed yesterday, you can go back again. Like I said, the recording is always available for you to look at, and you can see, you can know a bit more about what we do here. All right. And just to help you with we talked about all of this yesterday. And just to help you with a little intro of who I am, for those of you who don't know who I am, I'm Michael Ackman. I'm the director here and the lead business analysis coach here at the Skill Garage. And a little few, you know, details about me. I'm a university lecturer, an associate fellow higher education academy in the UK. And that means I can support and teach in higher institution in the UK. I started teaching at the age of 15 after my high school. I'm a senior product manager with more than 10 years of experience, building products that you love. I've worked with some of the biggest brands uh, uh, that all right, from Coca-Cola to Cadillac Fairview to Telos to Barclays to Abbott. For those of you who have kids, I don't think you escape Abbott. They have so many variety of stuff for kids, so and for well-being generally. All right, so I've worked with many of these telecommunication brands like Telos, like Rogers, and in different several sectors. I'm a product pundit. I've shown you a couple of the products yesterday. I showed you a couple of the products we've been working on. I showed you that one of our products is going to collision this year, and that's a big deal. Um, I'm a certified BA. I'm a certified Scrum Master. I'm a certified product owner. I'm an ardent Agile evangelist, and the list goes on. We've just been nominated for a very, huge award for this year. So, I believe that I am in a very good position to help you, uh, show you and lead you the same way I have led more than 300 people to transition in the past 3 years. I believe that I'm able to do that for you. And this class, like I said, if we go back to who is this for? Remember, I said this is for a complete novice. So if you're a complete novice to the subject of business analysis, if you're a complete novice to the subject of Scrum mastering and product ownership, this is for you. If you're just someone who is just ambitious, you just want to know what's the next step for me, that's fine. You can also be on this call. If you're someone who is curious, you know, curiosity, they say, kills the cat, doesn't kill the BA, doesn't kill the human. So you can be curious and be on this call just to know a little bit more. If you're a career changer, if you're obviously, this is for you. If you're a graduate, like one of my students, like I mentioned yesterday, who actually got his visa sponsored, had, got a job of 74,000, pounds, and he had just finished his master's in the UK, and it just a little investment. Then I think he was paying £900 for the course. With just a little investment of £900, he was able to, make that huge leap and that huge transition. And if you're an immigrant, just like myself, and you're looking for, you've come to see the reality of things on ground, that sometimes, or most times, not sometimes, it's most of the time, what you were doing back home does not necessarily translate to an easy, seamless transition into uh, a similar, career path when you move outside of your home country. You begin to see that reality. Then you want to probably begin to position yourself for something new or for an alternative career path. And this could just be, that career path that you want to take. And this class is for you to help you see, what this whole thing is about. All right. So we mentioned all of this yesterday. So please, please, please go to the recording. We have sent the recording links out. I'm going to send that again towards the end of the class. I'm going to put that in the chat towards the end of the class. I will put out the link for yesterday's class so that for those of you who missed that, you can always, make a reference to that. Also, today's class will also be uploaded, just like yesterday's class was uploaded. And you can always make reference to the class. All right. That said, I'm going to skip all of this. We went into the introduction of business analysis yesterday. I'm not going to go into the full details. I'm just going to give you, a quick brief. We started with the concept of change, and we talked about what change is. I showed you a set of slides, and I asked you to tell me what you observed. And good enough, I loved the class, the energy in the class yesterday. Everybody was, telling us their perspective of what they thought this was. All right. Some said it was transformation. Some said it was an upgrade. So many suggestions as to what you were able to, gather from the slides that I presented to you. At the end of the day, we were able to see that all of this can be summarized in one word called change. Okay. And then we moved on. I moved on to help you see that change can be one of two things. Okay. That change can either be creating something new or modifying something that already exists. We mentioned that yesterday. And then we started asking ourselves the question, what inspires change? What initiates the change? All right. A change won't just happen by itself. Something initiates a change, something inspires a change. And we said that thing that initiates a change is called the need. And then we went on to start, dissecting the need. What exactly is this need? This need could either be a problem you're trying to solve or an opportunity you are trying to cultivate. All right. We mentioned all of these things yesterday, and that led us, I'm going to skip a few things, and that led us to the point where we started looking at the definition of business analysis from the textbook. All right. Remember this definition that I put in front of you yesterday from the IIBA Babel Guide, that business analysis is the practice of enabling change in an enterprise by defining the needs and recommending solutions that deliver value to stakeholders. And then we took some of the keywords there like change, enterprise, need, solution, value, stakeholders, and we were able to start breaking that down one after the other and inserting it into that definition. You see, so we broke down what change is. We broke down what an enterprise is. We broke down what need is. We broke down what solutions are. We broke down what value is and what stakeholders are. And at the end of the day, I'm going to skip all of this. We were able to land at this definition, okay, which we call the skill garage definition, all right? And we were able to learn that this definition of business analysis, that business analysis is the practice of enabling something new or modifying something that was already there. So I can bet you that as a business analyst, the only two things you'll be involved in, okay, is either creating and implementing something new for the organization or for the business you're working for, or you are modifying something that was already there. You will not do anything outside these two things I've mentioned. Take my words for it, okay? Those are the only two things you will do. Implementing something new or modifying something that was already there. Now, what are the things you can actually do for the enterprise? It could be a product, it could be the process, it could be the technology. All right, we mentioned all of this yesterday. I just can't put everything in here. So it could be the product, it could be the process, it could be technology, it could be training the people, because this is what makes up the enterprise, right? Because if you're enabling a change in the enterprise, one of the things that I mentioned yesterday was that the enterprise actually is the product, the process, their policies, the technology, the people, the subsets of the organization. That's what you would literally be changing. So if you come back to this definition, it then helps you to see that the something new will actually be a product. The something new may actually be a policy. The something new may actually be a process. The something new may actually be some technology. The something new may actually be some subset of the organization. So when you see the word enterprise, don't let that make you feel scared, right? Okay, so we broke that down and we said that the first step in doing this as a BA is defining exactly what the need is, defining the problem you're trying to solve, defining the opportunities you're trying to cultivate, defining the pain points you're trying to eliminate. And then by reason of the information that you've gathered, by reason of your work as a BA, gathering and eliciting information, you'll be able to get to the point where you and the rest of your team can then begin to recommend solution. And we said that solution could either be some features that you're recommending. That could be a solution. It could be some steps in a process. That could be a solution. It could be a design or some type of design. That could be a solution, or an approach to something. That could be a solution. So when you hear the word solution, don't let that make you feel, scared, right? It could be a feature, it could be steps, it could be design, it could be, and it's not a lone game. It's not a one-man game. So don't think as a BA, you'll be doing all of these things as one man. No. And then we went on to say that all these things you're doing is just to deliver benefit, value to everybody and anybody that is affected or that affects the project. And that begins to bring a new understanding to who the stakeholders are in the business analysis context. It's not just the people you serve. It is the people that are affected or that can affect the work that you do. And then we talked about all of that yesterday. And then we looked at some of the common elements in business analysis. Then we talked about who a business analyst is. Now, at this point, I helped you to see that some of you are already business analysts, and we saw that on the call right yesterday. We were able to see that on the call because according to the Bible guide, a business analyst is not necessarily the person who has the title. It is the person who does the business analysis task, which we kind of saw yesterday. And I showed you a couple of them, about 9 of them. And there are even more. That's just 9. There are more. Okay? There are more of these things. Now, I showed you a couple resumes yesterday. Okay? Of how people who were, someone who was a business development manager in a petrol station, okay, became a BA. And he included the experience, okay, in a very simple and reasonable way, all right, that actually relates to the role he was looking for. Okay, and that's one of the things I mentioned yesterday, that some of you already have what it takes to move, what it takes to to not start from the bottom. That's the idea. You see? Yeah. Some of you have what it takes to not start from the bottom. You have what it takes to start a mid-level or a senior level role. And somebody rightly asked a very good question, that how do I start without an experience? How do I start this type of role without an experience? So I was able to help them see that, listen, you may have an experience, you may have experience which you are not even aware of. You see? But then I give them a 3 solid, you know, fail-proof step of actually having to transition to any role. I mentioned those 3 steps: getting relevant and organized knowledge, gaining work experience, and getting mentorship. And any role you will ever want to transition to, those 3 things will become very paramount. All right. So we mentioned all of this, and I showed you this, that if you've driven change, if you've improved business process, and I gave you examples of people who have done this. I told you of a student of mine, Nosa, a student of mine, who actually, was working in the bank back in Nigeria, and told me of a project that he did with the bursary department of a particular university. Now, he thought that project was to be discarded, that project was just some kind of simple, it doesn't really matter. But at the end of dissecting and sitting down with him for an hour, he discovered that it was much more than what he thought. And that was the job that gave him, that was the experience that landed him his first job here with the government of Saskatchewan as a BA. You see? So you may already have those things that it takes to become a business analyst already. So we kind of dealt with all of that yesterday. We looked at the roles and responsibilities. So again, I'm saying all of these just in case you were not on the call yesterday. If you were not on the call yesterday, nothing to, to fret about. I'll be sharing the link for the recording by the end of the class. So you can always, go back to see what it is that you missed. And then we looked at a very inspiring video from this lady who is a business analyst, and we all listened to her. And some of the things she said about certifications, talking about, how being a BA is just an organic process, right? How, she even got into business analysis without even knowing what business analysis was. And that's how easy it can be to transition. Now, when I say easy, I'm not trying to downplay the fact that there's hard work involved in understanding and learning certain things that would help you, learn the skill, the techniques, and all of that stuff. No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying in terms of where you are, in terms of positioning, career positioning, it's kind of easy to take some of the skills that you have from your previous job and use that, some of the experience you have from your previous job, and use that to transition instead of trying to cultivate new set of experiences, which of course we provide for you in the bootcamp. We provide for you new set of experiences. But I'm saying what could be better than you leveraging something you already know? You see, that's a much better way of pivoting or transitioning to a career like this. That's what I did. That's what about more than 300 of my students who have been successful, that's what they did. I can't tell you otherwise. Now, am I saying everybody succeeded in the process? No, some of them gave up at some point, because again, this is not the walk in the park. It's not the get rich quick scheme. This would cost you some days of toiling, some days of study, some days of practice, right? Yeah, absolutely, 100%. Okay, so we mentioned a lot of this yesterday. I'm not going to play this again. Sorry about that. Okay, and then we talked about you know, uh, the competencies of a BA. And then we moved on to the software development lifecycle, which is actually where we're going to pick it up from today. You see? So we're going to pick up the software development lifecycle today. Now, with that, I have a few things to say. I'm going to use a live project from one of our cohorts to explain this, because sometimes, relating to something that is a bit more practical helps to drive the concept home. Is that okay? Now, I'm going to pause the slide for a bit. I'm going to take you into one or two of the projects that our students have done in the past. You know, I'm always proud of every project, of course. There are numerous projects that we have. And I'll show you this process in practice. And then we can come back again to the theory and then begin to dissect it. Is that okay? All right, so let's look at the software development lifecycle quickly. Now, the first, okay, let me open quickly this so that at the same time, I'm actually showing you one or two things. So yesterday, we started off with the software development lifecycle, right? Please, again, for those of you just joining us, this is day 2, actually the last day. All right. And the discount, the huge discount I gave yesterday is still up and running. It ends tonight. Okay. So for those of you who are looking to also take advantage of that. But anyways, stick with me till the end and let's get as much as we can from these sessions. Now, like I said before, some of you may not have what it takes to, especially financially, all right? It's a sacrifice of finances. But if you don't have what it takes, please listen to these 2 sessions, day 1 and day 2. At least they will give you a good grasp of what the whole thing is about. And then you can go back and do your self-study, right? Yeah, that's the idea. If you think you're the kind of person that you just need that direction, I feel like what we're going to do here in 2 days, yesterday and today, is going to give you that direction. And then you can go online and start searching for information. If that is the way you want to go, which is fine. I mean, your success is my success. But if you are the type who still feels like you will still need some kind of hand holding, and okay, so the boot camp is now there for you. All right. But we will do our part to make sure that you are on the path to success. That's it. All right. And this is the best that we can do. All right. This is the best that we can do. All right. For you. All right. So when I said 11:59 p.m., it's your time zone, 11:59 p.m. BST. Okay. All right. So let's go on talking about the SDLC quickly. Now, the SDLC, what's the SDLC? The SDLC is the software development life cycle. Okay, the software development life cycle. Now, how did we get here? Because I was just teaching some group of novices what business analysis is about, and all of a sudden, I take you to software development life cycle. Is that rather not too early or too quick? No, it's not. Remember that yesterday we were able to establish that the business analyst is what? Is the enabler of a change, of the change that the organization wants to take, consider, right? Is the enabler of the change. We're able to establish that. And one of the things that we established using that diagram, that picture I showed you from yesterday, one of the things we established from there was that a BA will undergo a change, will enable a change through a project. How many of you remember that? We said that a BA would actually, enable that change through the vehicle or the medium of a project. And then we began to see how a project is run. But one of the things that I mentioned is that in this day and age, and you can bear me witness, you can do your research. In this day and age, the types of projects, okay, that you work on in organizations will have 1 or 2 things to do with IT. It will have 1 or 2 things to do with software. It will have 1 or 2 things to do with systems. Yeah. Even if you are dealing with processes like supply chain, logistics, like financial processes, software is involved. In supply chain, you probably want to get updates on the purchase order, on certain invoices and things like that. All those things are powered through systems. and systems are made up of software. So you then begin to see that as a BA, ordinarily, when you get on the job, you are most likely going to be facing software projects. So it then becomes meaningful for us to look at this. And that is why we're looking at the SDLC. And honestly, to be honest with you, the SDLC is how a product is built. You see the digital products you see out there? The SDLC is how it is built. Long and short. So let's start. The first thing is planning. And I said that in planning, the main goal of planning, there are other goals of planning, right? There are other things you would want to achieve during the planning stage. But the main goal is to understand the scope. You want to bring clarity to the scope of the work. There are other things that you want to establish in planning, like, for example, the roadmap. Okay, like when should we be doing stuff? That's another thing you want to establish. Okay, but the most important thing that leads to all of these other things is the scope of work. What is the scope of what we want to do? So, like I said, and I promised, I'm going to show you examples. So let's start with that. So I'm going to go into our base camp where we have all of our projects. So these are a whole lot of projects. Now I'll show you one of the projects. Let me show you one of this project, okay? And let me show you this. So, oh, do I need to sign in now? Oh, well, okay, give me a minute, guys. I think that needs me to sign in. Give me a minute, guys. That wants me to sign in, so I'm just gonna get my, I know I changed the details today, so just give me a minute. Otherwise, I may check something else. Give me a minute, guys. Changed my details today. Okay. I'm just going to just quickly sign in. Sign does not exist. Okay. Let me see. Give me a minute, guys. Let's see. It's saying it doesn't no longer exist. I'm not sure why it doesn't exist. Okay. Let me go to another project. I have to deal with that later. Let me use another project since that is not it's not working. Let me use another project. There are so many projects I can use. Okay, so let's use this project. Okay, for example, let's use this project for example. All right, now this is the brief of this project. So you get a brief like this, okay, that this is what I want to achieve, or this is what we want to achieve with this project and all of that stuff. Okay, you can be given a preliminary scope. A preliminary scope doesn't mean that that is all that there is to that project, right? And then you're given a few things, the phases of the development of that project, the budget and all of that, the stakeholders and things like that. All right, so where do you go from there? Now, you first need to establish what it is that you want to do, which is where the planning comes in. You need to establish what it is that you want to do. Now, I'm not going to go into the full details, but then you are able to come up with something like this, which shows you the scope of everything you want to do, okay? The scope of work. For example, yesterday I made an example of the dating app, that in the dating app, you want people to register, you want people to log in, you want people to chat, you want people to manage their account, you want people to, some level of privacy, so you would mention all the things that you want. And then you and the sponsor, or you and whoever represents the business, will now prioritize what should go into the scope. What should we be looking at? That is what you want to establish at this point. So I'm going to take off this one. So I don't know why it's not there anymore. This is what you want to establish at this point. What is it that we are actually working on? What is it that we are actually trying to do? Okay, so you now know that we are supposed to work on registration. We should work on login. We should work on account management. We should work on matching. We should work on, um, privacy. We should work on reset password, you know, password. We should work on, and then you keep going on. It's a sundry list. But then what exactly, because you would be given that there are certain constraints when it comes to a project. There is the time constraint, budget constraint, and scope constraint. So imagine we are given 6 months to do this. Can we do all of this in 6 months? Can we do all of this in 3 months? So there will be need to prioritize and know exactly what it is that we are actually looking to do. Does that make sense? So now you have all of this. This is the AfroShop platform. All right. These are the main users. These are the things we know we need to do for this platform. We need to get them to register, log in, set location, search for stores, select stores, search for these, add a payment, make payment, guest checkout, blah, blah, blah. And then for store owners, they should register and create their store, document it, add the prices, keep track of inventory and all of that. And then for delivery agents, we need to, okay, this is fine. But which one are we focusing on now? What is the scope of our work? That is what planning helps you to do. It helps you to narrow down to exactly what it is that you want to work on. And by reason of doing that, you can now begin to have a roadmap as to what you are going to do now, what you're going to do later, and what you're going to do at the end of the year. Things like that. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? I'm just trying to be a bit brief here. This is a full lecture, right? But I'll try to be as, concise as possible. Like I said, for those of you who are not able to move on to the bootcamp, you can take the information that I give you here, and then you can still win with it. Like people like Akpos and Lillian, all right? They didn't attend a bootcamp. They just came to the 2-day class like this, and then took what I told them, and then boom, they got a job afterwards. And they came back and told me, which was a good thing anyways, to say, I learned it from your class and I got a job. Which was a good thing. Okay, but for some of you, you still need that handholding. So please listen carefully. Now you would now begin to see that there are some things we are saying MVP, MVP, MVP. What does that mean? I'll tell you that later. Let's hold that now. We started saying MVP, MVP. We were trying to set out the scope. MVP means minimum viable product, but it's like saying the first thing we're going to work on, right? The first release. But I'm going to tell you what that means. Okay, so we have this list of things, the scope of work. And then we said, these are the things we're going to focus on. Are you getting it? These are the things we're going to focus on. Now, we then take this, that is the planning. So that is planning for you. Okay? After planning, the next thing, okay, is requirement analysis. That's the next step. So now we know what to do. The next thing is now to break down each of these high-level requirements. Because you cannot build anything with registration. Yes, you cannot. I mean, you can build something, but it may not be what the person wants. So you need to get the detail. You see, you need to get the detail of these features. Does that make sense? Because registration for one application may be different from registration for another application. For this application that has to do with dating app, registration we may say, okay, let's have 2 types of registration. Social registration, okay? And then we say the social registration will only be Google and Twitter, maybe, or X. It's now called X. Google and X. That's the only social that you can use for registration. You're now getting into the details, right? Aha. Now, we can now say the second type of registration path is using your email or phone number and password. That's the second type of registration. But it doesn't stop there, because there are certain details we need to get for this. So the details that we'll need to get, irrespective of whether it is social or email and password, we need to get their first name, last name, date of birth, because this is an 18 plus application, right? So we need to check their date of birth and know whether they are to be admitted into or to be given access to the platform. Do you see that? Now, some other platform may not do that, because there's like, for example, there's one project that we are working on. Let me see if she has give me a minute. Let me see if she has the user story. I'm just checking to see whether she have the user story out. Okay, they don't have the user story yet. Okay, all right. Let me mention a few things here. You can see competitor analysis here and things like this. These are some of the things you do during the planning, because you can do competitor analysis to check what the competitors are doing so that you can have an idea of what you should be doing. Do you understand? So I'm cutting out all those parts, because again, this is kind of like a crash course. So I'm not going to be saying everything. Okay, so just so you know, all right, because there's a lot of things you do before you get to this point. Do you understand? I have cut out all those parts. So don't think that, this just happens automatically, right? There are some things that you do, like what you just saw them do there. Like you could do a SWOT analysis just to understand what strategy works for you. You can do like a competitor analysis just to understand what others are doing and how you can make yours different. Okay, you can do research, you can do elicitation. So there's quite a lot of things that happens in the background that gets you to this point. Do you get what I'm saying? Aha. So, but at the end of the day, the major thing is that you want to understand and narrow down to the scope. Once you understand that, you now want to dig deep, or what we call, you want to do a deep dive into the details. And this is where the requirement analysis stage comes in play. So you now begin to understand that they should provide first name, last name, date of birth. They should agree to some terms and conditions. Okay, some terms and conditions. They should give apart from their email, first name, last name, date of birth, their gender. Okay, because these days, so many genders. So they give their gender and maybe one or two things that they are asking for. Now you are going into the detail. Do you see that? You're going into the detail. You're giving us detail. Now, it is this detail that you are going to do for login. You will do this detail for account management. You will do this detail for matching. You will do this detail for payment. And you're going to write that detail out. And there's a way to do that. There's a way to document those details. So you're going to document those details. You're going to write those details out. When you document those details will now be picked up and they will be changed into the next step. So the first step, planning. The second step, requirement analysis. The third step is design. So now that we have the detail, that detail will now form the basis of our design. Okay? That detail will form the basis of our design. In fact, I have a very good example to use. Let me use the TSG project. Okay? It will form the basis of our design. Okay? So you can see that there's a lot of things that they did, from BRD to competitor analysis, and then they did an elicitation. All right, you can see this. So all those things I'm not mentioning right now, because again, this is not the class for it. You can see they came in, they asked questions, they did a lot of things. And then from those questions, they were able to understand what they need to do. Okay, so when they understood what they needed to do, they created a document that shows the scope, a BRD that shows the scope. And then I had to approve the BRD and say, this is good to go. Okay, I approved the BRD. They did some prioritization, you can see, and then to understand the scope, and then they put in the scope and put in the work. And then they went ahead and started. So this is like having the planning done. Then they went ahead and they did the details. Okay, the detailed requirement. All right, you can see the detailed requirement. So about us page, they went and they did the details, started putting in the details of each of these things. Okay, now these details, let me show you. Let me show you another version of it. Let me give you an example. For example, this one. Okay, so they went in and started putting the details that, oh, users should be able to view this. Users should be able to do that. User based on the information that they have collected from the sponsor or from the business. Do you see what do you see that? So this BA is like the middleman between the business and the implementers, trying to make sure that he has the right information for the implementers to implement. So puts all of these things together and passes it on to the designer. So the designer then picks this up and then creates a design. Creates a design. And I'm going to say a few things here about design, please. So please pay some attention here, especially for those of you who are new to this. All right. I'm taking my time because of those of you who are actually new to this. Okay. All right. So let's see this example. So this is the requirements I showed you not too long ago. Okay, this is the requirement, and we're going to look at it. The analyzed requirement, this is the analysis. Now, when you are talking about the scope, you can say in the scope, we need an about us page. Do you understand? So in the scope, for example, here, you can say about us will be part of it. But here, you have to give us the details of the about us. You come here and give us the detail of the about us. Okay? All right. Now, in giving us the detail of the about us, they wrote all of this. Users should be able to see the TSG brand story. They should be able to see the TSG mission, vision, and purpose. They should be able to see their values. They should be able to, how did they get this information? From the sponsor, from me. Or if it is another project like the Airpacks project, from Mr. Bomo, who is the project sponsor for that project. You see, so they will gather that requirement and then put it in something like this, get it approved, and then move it on to the designer. Now see what the designer will do. We'll now take it and then begin to interpret it in our own way. Now, is this the only design that happens during the design stage? No. I'll tell you the other designs that happen. So please stay tuned. So it takes this TSD brand story, right? And then does this, our story. And then TSG mission, vision, and purpose. And then she creates this mission, vision, purpose. And then should show TSG values, like our achievements, our awards, our lead coach, blah, blah, blah. Okay. She takes that and shows this. Shows this. And then it says that they should see photos and profile of TSG team. And they give examples. Then see that here. So you can see that the information has now trickled down. We're now evolving from understanding what we need to do, which is the scope, then going deep into the details, and then taking that detail and creating design out of it. Now, hold on. Michael, is this the only thing that we do in design? No. No. Design can also mean that, so this could be low or high fidelity design, which I showed you now, fidelity design. What I just showed you is the high fidelity design, okay? In some other projects, for example, some other projects like, let me give you another project like our Airpacks project, which we were working for the airport. It could be a low-fi first. We could do a low fidelity first, okay? This is what we call low fidelity. We can do a low fidelity wireframe first before we go into the full design. Okay? All right? We could go do that before we go into the full design. Do you understand? So it could be low or hi-fi. Now, this can also be process design or modeling. Yes, Michael, yes, that's it. This can also be process design or modeling. What do I mean by that? So let's say you are working on a process. You want to understand that process. So you go into you try and understand the detail of the current state of that process. Is that not? Is that not what you're going to do? So once you understand the detail of the current state, you want to draw it out. You want to put it out as a process flow. You want to model it so that you can begin, so you and the stakeholder can easily visually see what is happening step by step. So this can also be process design and modeling. I give you an example. Okay, let me show you a few examples of what I mean here. Just show you a few. And these are some of the things you will, and they're not difficult stuff. All right. So design and let me see if I can show you a few things here. Okay, things like this. Okay, of course you're going to learn to do things like this, right? They're not. It's not rocket science. It's not. These are not difficult stuff. Okay, it may look like what the heck is this, but they are simple things just to show you how things work. For example, order received, check feasibility. Is order feasible? Yes, if it is feasible, check the parts are available. If the parts are not, if it's not feasible, then inform the customer. If the parts are available, then order it from the warehouse. If it is not available, order it from the supplier. Either way, we are going to assemble the drone. And then once the drone has been assembled, we're going to disassembling the drone, we're going to look at it somewhere else, because this is the drone assembling process when the parts are ready. So all these things you're going to learn, these are some of the things you're going to learn how to do. Do you understand? Okay, so this is also part of design. Do you get what I'm saying? Okay, let me now show you another level of design, which this one you are not the one that will be doing it. It's called data modeling or database modeling. What do I mean by that? So say, for example, you now understand that first name, last name, date of birth, gender are the things you're going to be collecting, right? The developer will now start building the database and designing the database. So he'll be designing the database because you now have the details of the information you are supposed to be collecting. Do you see? So you are very integral to that process. You are integral to the success of what it is that they are working on. Whether it is a process, whether it is a product, you're integral to that process. Okay. So design is the next step. So once design has been done, things has been approved. Okay. We've approved your designs. Okay. Let me use this as an example. Let me continue with this one. There are a lot of examples and projects I can show you, but let's just stick to one. I'll stick to this one, to the Skill Garage one. So you now have your design. Question is, what is the next step after my designs? Of course, it's to bring it to reality. It's like having an architect draw you a blueprint of the house you want to build. That house is not built until it is built. The best that it is just a design. All right? So we need to take the design and build it. We need to take the process and work on it. So if it's a process that you just, you looked at the current state of the process, then you now need to start looking at and start saying, how do we want to make this thing better? You need to start implementing and working on it, looking for improvements. You see, it's the same thing if you're working on a digital product, you would have to now build it. So the next step, okay, after design is the fourth thing here called implementation. That's the next step, implementation. So you have planning, requirement analysis, design, and then the fourth step is implementing that design now. Or you would see some people call it coding or build. Do you see that? So you are implementing, you're coding, you're building. Now, what is your role here? Your role is to help the developer understand what he needs to build. You're not the one building, but remember that you are the middleman, you're the liaison between business and the implementers. And you are the enabler of that success, of the success of this project. In what sense? In the sense that you need to make sure that they are doing the right thing. So you're going to take the information from here and give it to those here. Give it to the implementers. So you will now take the design and also begin to write and document some other things that the design has not said. Because design could be static. It could be a prototype. But there are some things that even the design may not be able to say completely. So you need to help the developer understand some of the intricacies or some of the things that is expected or that you would like to see. Think about it like this. You want to attend your best friend's wedding, all right? And then you need to sew, a new dress. This dress needs to be a masterpiece. It needs to get heads turning. It needs to get heads and eyes fixed on you. All right. So you want to give him the latest design and give him requirements, okay, for him to build you or create for you one of the best dresses ever seen in a party, right? Good. Now, when you give the requirements out, what is left to do is for that guy to start working on it, right? It's the same thing. It's for this guy to start building and creating this thing. That is where implementation comes in. And you will be helping him if he needs anything, if he needs clarification, okay? And I'm going to talk about this later, the Jira. So these are some of the tools we're going to be teaching you, okay? So let's look at this, for example. So you would have something like this where you now manage the work, where you will put in the requirements for the developer, okay? You have some requirements, you have some communication here. So things will be going back and forth. So we're going to talk about all of these things. Okay, you write down the requirements for this and ensure that, you see, this is part of the design. Can you see this is part of the design? You've put that in so that the developer can now take it and start working on it. You see that? All right. So once the developer does that, okay, building it with the code, it is now time for testing it. Testing and integration. I will explain that. So the next step, I've talked about 4 steps now: planning, analysis, design, implementation, and then the next step is testing and integration. Okay, what is this about? I'll explain. Now, it's just like you giving your dress to your fashion designer. Now, how many of you, when you get that dress from the fashion designer, you won't put it on? The first time you're going to put it on will be when you're going for the party. That'll be the first time you're putting it on. How many of you would do that? How many of you would do that? Anybody? Is that what you would typically do? Like when you get the dress from the tailor or the fashion designer, you just wait for the day of the party, and that's when you launch it. And then you say, today I'm going to launch this dress. Is that what you do? That's not what you do. Okay, tell me, what would you do? When you get that dress from the tailor, what do you do? What's the first thing that comes to mind? What's the first thing that comes to mind? You try it on. Thank you, Latif or Latifa. You try it on. Thank you, Ife. Thank you, Odinaka. You will test it. You try it on. And when you try it on, you may discover that, wait, this guy did not get my bust line properly. This guy did not cut the shaba. You know that thing they call shaba? The split. He didn't do the split properly. The split should be getting here so that eyes can turn. So he didn't get all those requirements right. You need to send it back to the tailor. Some of you will even go and sit down. You take your chair there and you sit with the tailor and say, tomorrow is the day. You have to finish this thing this night. You're not working on anybody's thing. You see, because you want to make sure that they have the right thing, that they've done the right thing. It's testing. That's called testing. Before you hit the big stage. It's the same thing here. It's the same thing here. It's the same thing here. So by the time this guy is building these things, okay, by the time he's building it, you are then testing it to see that what you told him is actually what he's doing. Now, I understand the testing, but I don't understand the integration. What is the integration? Let me explain that to you quickly. So quickly, I'm going to explain that to you using this. So this is us, we are building this. Now, I'm not going to talk about staging environment. I will talk about that in the bootcamp, okay? I just want to focus on the main thing, okay? Because I could talk about the staging environment and things like that. Now, the way this website was built, it's not just built like everything, we build everything once like this. No, that's not how this website was built. This website was built in components. So let me explain. You see this navigation is a component. This, buttons is a component. This hero is a component. This strip is a component. These cards, there is a component. You see, this card is a component. This one is a component. And then you will now bring those components together and integrate them. Are you getting it? Are you getting it? So you can test this component as a component, as a unit. It's called unit testing. You test it as a component, it's called unit testing. You then now integrate it with the parts that it needs to be integrated with. Now, when you integrate it, something may go bad. Something may go bad. So that means you need to test it again. That testing is called regression testing after you integrate. Why is it called regression testing? Let me give you an example. When a man who is let's say if a man, or when a man and a woman who are living independent lives and doing well for themselves decide that they fall in love, and then they come together in what is called a union of marriage, right? Now, the expectation is that these two become one and they will make progress together. Does that make sense? Okay, let me take that again. The idea is that these two components, man, woman, will come together as one component and make progress together. That's the expectation, right? But it doesn't always happen like that. It doesn't always happen like that. Some marriages, component come, and then boom. And then before you know it, tomorrow they are saying they want to divorce. They don't make progress. They make what is called, they regress. They don't progress, they regress. Now, it's the same idea here. When you bring one component and another component and you integrate it, there's a tendency that they will regress. They may not function like they were functioning when they were units. So you now do what is called regression testing. You get it? They do what is called what? Regression testing. So regression testing is for when you add the components now. You are testing them all over again to make sure that they are working as a one holistic unit, one unified unit. So there is the unit testing as a component. There's a regression testing as an integrated set of components. Now, there are other types of testing, but I'm not going to bore you with that. These are the two that is most important for you to know. So when you do that type of testing, which you may not even be the one doing, but sometimes you may be the one doing, okay? We're going to teach you how to write test scripts and all of that. But there are some people called the software testers. Is their job. Quality assurance, okay? Is their job, okay? That person asking me what's the difference between BA and QA. I hope you are listening now. There are some people called QA. I know you asked me that question yesterday. Some people called QA, okay? Quality assurance, testers, or quality assurance analyst, or they can go by another name, software testers. These guys their sole responsibility is to do all manner of testing, smoke testing, penetration testing. I can't teach you all the testing because that's not your field, but the ones that are very important, I'm telling you now, the unit and the, and the regression testing and exploratory testing, right? Because yes, you may be required to do some testing as a BA, but not like a QA. QA, it's their job. You see, it's just like a QA writing requirements. It's not his job. He can do it for a while, but it's not his job. You see? While some people will also require you to do QA work, but it's not your work. Do you understand? And that is why you need to be multi-skilled. You see, you need to be multi-skilled. So we're not going to just teach you BA. You're going to learn some QA. You're going to learn product ownership and learn, because that is what this world, that is what the market needs now. The market is not looking for a sole BA. No, that's the market is not looking for that now. The market is looking for somebody who can enter. Go and check the job descriptions now. You see what I'm telling you? That's what the market is looking for. All right. So you have to move according to the market trend. All right. Okay. So let's get back here so that we can, because there's a lot to cover today. So testing and integration. So while testing, you will discover some flaws. You will discover some things that are not working properly, right? You will now take them, they will be called bugs. You take them and send them back to the developer. The developer is going to work on it, send it back to you. So this is where you have this. So you can see that there are some things that are ready for QA. There are some things that are QA blocked. There are some things that are tested and it is okay. All right. So all these ones now, they are going to check it and then move it to done. Whereas the ones that are QA blocked, probably they have some score, they have some bugs. So we have going to send it back to the developer for them to, work on it. You get what I'm trying to say there? Now, imagine you've gone through this process now. The next thing, by the time you do this process properly, it means that you would have come out with a set of product, or a product that actually has the things that you demanded, the things that you asked for. Okay? So, testing and integration, the next thing will be deployment. Okay? Or the deploy stage. Because now we've tested, we've integrated. Now, let me tell you about one more testing. It's called the UAT. You will see that a lot, or you see that a lot on job descriptions. Okay? It's called the UAT. What is UAT? User acceptance testing. This is towards the end of the build when you're almost ready to, hand it over, right? Now, they're going to do an end-to-end, the person you are building it for. Let's say you are building this for me now. I'm going to do a test end-to-end, okay, on this platform now. I'm going to try and copy this thing, whether the code is working, okay, and try to paste it somewhere. Okay, like for example, if I try to paste that, let me see if it, you see, it's working. It means that I could copy. So thumbs up for that. All right, because I'm the one who gave them this work. All right, if I click on get started, is it working? So I will do all the end-to-end, okay, on this platform. I will do all the checks, bootcamp, okay, business analysis, okay, all right, enroll now, okay, it's working. I can send the registration, okay, all right. I will do all the end-to-end testing, week 1, week 2, week 3, and all of that. Okay, this is working, all right, this makes sense, enroll now. Is this making, okay, this is working, okay, and then I watch the stories, okay, so this is the testing environment. I'm testing it. These are not the real data. Okay, of course, this is 2023. So this is not yet live. So one time I test it and I find that everything is okay from my end as the user, I will now accept it. It's called user acceptance. I was testing it to accept it. So user acceptance testing. Do you get that? If everything is good, now we'll now check some other things, right? Like cyber, like security and all of that other stuff to be sure that everything is fine. And then the next thing is what? Deploy. The next thing is deployment. Send it to the public. Let them use it. It's time to give it to the public. Let them use it. And then give us feedback. So deploy is when You now send it out to the public. You use the real database. You clean up some stuff. Use the right URL, and then the public can now get it and start using it. That's when we say things have gone live. Things went live. It went live. That is when you wake up in the morning and then you see Facebook has done update 2.1. They just pushed a new feature. They just deployed a new feature, or they just upgraded something that was there. All right. So you'll do that. Okay. Now the last step is now maintenance. Most people don't do this last step. They move on to another project. You see, it's called maintenance. Maintenance is where you're waiting for feedback from the users. You look at the feedback, you see what it is that they are complaining about, and then you try to fix it. You see if there's anything that is not going as expected. You try to work it out. They could give you thumbs, it's some green signal that you're going to be moving on to the next stage of that project, you see. So at the maintenance level, there's really nothing much to do here because this application is now running and working properly. So that is it. That is your SDLC. Let's recap. Planning, requirement analysis, design, implementation, testing and integration, deploy, and maintenance. That is your SDLC. And that is how typical products are built. That's how a product is built. All right? Now, let me now take you a step further towards helping you understand how we came about Scrum Master, Product Owner, and how this is also a simple thing you can do, how it is related to what you're doing as a BA. I've always told people who care to listen, there's never a time I was a BA that I was not a Scrum Master. Never. I know it's not ideal according to the books, but I'm telling you what happens out there. There was never a time I was a BA and I was not a Scrum Master. And sometimes I'm not even a BA, I'm a PO. So it means that all these things you need to know what they are, okay? And know, that you can play these roles. You can play these roles. Absolutely. So let's dive into that right now. So you see the SDLC. Let me quickly, any questions? Any questions quickly? Any questions? Okay, I see one or two questions here, and I'm just gonna, somebody say, what is the discount exactly? Okay, I'm gonna tell you the discount at the end of the class. Don't worry, let's focus on the class right now. You have a 30% discount, which is a huge one, something I usually don't do, and that is on top of the early bird. Okay, there's an early bird discount, and then I'm gonna give you another additional discount of 30%. So that's like, I think maybe 35% discount or so at the end of the day. So for those of you making a one-time payment, and for those of you making a three-time payment, it's a 20, I think, was it 25 we said yesterday? Remind me, 25, I think it was 25 or 20, but one of those two, I will check. Okay, we gave a discount for those of you that will be paying in installment, okay? A 25, I think it's a 25% discount or thereabout for those of you paying in installment, okay? On top of the early bird, okay? All right. Okay, so let's look at this now. Is the tester expected to test what wasn't part of the user story and acceptance criteria? I think that question is self-explanatory. Why do you want to test something that was not asked? Or how will you even test something that was not built? Okay, because the acceptance criteria was how that thing was built. Do you understand? The acceptance criteria. And please let me say something with acceptance criteria, because I know some people on this call, you are very new to this. So the person asking this question probably has some idea of what, and this is why I try to be careful when I'm teaching a mixed class, right? Because there are people who know this thing and they will now start throwing us vocabulary, user story, acceptance criteria. So let me, I don't like to answer questions like this for this reason, because this class has novices in there. But let me explain that. user story and acceptance criteria is just a way you write the detailed requirements. You know that place where we say requirement analysis, you write detailed requirements. Now, user story is how you write it. So you write the detailed requirement, and acceptance criteria is also a way to expatiate or expatiate or to write the detail of that requirement. So just think about it as, when you hear user story and acceptance criteria, think about it as detailed requirements. Does that make sense? So in this case, if I replace what this person is saying and I said, is the tester expected to test what wasn't part of the detailed requirement? Now you understand it better, right? Aha. So let me rephrase what this person asked. Is the tester expected to test what wasn't in the detailed requirement? My answer will be, why? Why does he want to test what is not in the detailed requirement? Where is he going to get that from? Because the tester relies on the requirements to test, except he has some information based on the fact that he has been a part of this project, okay? And he didn't see that information in the requirement. So he can now question the BA and say, why don't we have this here? And I don't see it on the thing here, so he can question it. But if he's solely relying, which is what he does, on the detailed requirement, I see no reason why he's testing something that wasn't there in the first place. So I hope that answers your question. Okay. I hope that answers your question. All right. Somebody's saying, do we have to go through this SDLC, any change process project? You know, change process projects, like I said, process projects may or may not involve software. I'm dealing with software right now. That is why it's called SDLC, is because it's software. Now, change processes may not involve software. A change process may just involve systems. And in that case, it is very simple. So if you're dealing with a change process, it's simple. Let me tell you how to deal with a change process. You see, it's very simple. How do you deal with a change process? Or if fix a broken process? In fact, let me show you. We have a full this thing on that. Fixing a broken process. Let me show you. It's very simple, fixing a broken process. First, you understand the problem. You map out the current state and understand and do your further analysis. Then you define the to be, that is the future state. You brainstorm on the solutions. You document the requirements, support implementation, communicate the change, and monitor continuous improvement. That's it. So basically, in long and short, what you're doing is understand the problem, which is like the planning, you see? Then understand the current state, which is the as-is, the current state, know what exactly is there. Then understand what they want to achieve, which is the to be. Between the as-is and the to be, there is a gap that needs to be filled. Brainstorm the solution or discuss the solution with your team. Brainstorm the solution. Once that solution has been approved, document it and circulate it, right? And then once it's documented, they will now implement it. If you're a change manager, you're going to what? You're going to communicate that change. So this one is optional. You communicate that change to people, and then you do continuous improvement. You monitor the change. So that's it for process-related change. So that's not a big deal. It's a very simple thing, okay? From as-is, the current state, future state, what do we need to, change here? Agree on the solution that you have proposed, and then implement it. Simple. Pass like that. Pass like that. Any other thing is they're just trying to deceive you with Harvard language. It's pass like that, right? Okay. All right. So please, was the class recorded? Yesterday's class was recorded, and I'm going to share the link with you at the end of the class. And this class is also being recorded, and it's also going to be shared with you. All right. Okay. Let's move on. So the next thing I want to tell you is there are two approaches to how you use the SDLC. Two approaches to how you use the SDLC. Let me tell you what those approaches are. It's called the Waterfall and Agile. I can't do detail. There's a lot to say here, but I can't do everything. I will just give you the basics, right? Now, there are two approaches to the execution of an IT project or a software project. There are two approaches. One approach is what we call the waterfall approach. The other approach is what we call the agile approach. Okay, again, I'm not going to go into the details, okay, but I'll give you enough to understand. Now, the waterfall takes the SDLC and approaches it methodically, approaches it linearly, approaches it sequentially. So what does that mean? It means that you have to do one thing first and get that thing done. Get everything done in that particular step before moving to the next step. It's like, this method, remember there was the industrial revolution, the manufacturing era before the digital era. Do you know that? There was the manufacturing era before the digital era. And for those of you who were like me, you did some factory job before God smiled on you. Okay, God also always smiles on us. So don't let it sound as if he doesn't smile on us. Okay, before, you were able to escape that kind of heavy job. If you are doing factory work, how many of you have done factory work before? You see all those lines, that one thing, the output of one line will go into the next line. And then the output of that line will go into another line. That is how manufacturing works. They will finish it in batches. They will do one batch, that batch will go into the next line, and then it will, process and then go into the next batch. And then finally, you have the final product. Now, when they now started the digital age, they were thinking like manufacturers. They were thinking like the industrialists. But this is digital. But you can't blame them. Life is progressive. So they were thinking like those in the manufacturing, in the factories, where one line leads to the next. So in case you don't know what I'm talking about, I'm just going to show you a few of the slides. So look at this. You see, one thing, and then it moves to the next line, and then the next line moves to the next line. So that was the way they thought about this. And then they moved on to the digital age and carried on. And carried on with that. You see? So what they do is that they'll finish the requirements stage first. All the requirements. So imagine doing all the requirements for the high level thing the scope that you collected, right? You do all the requirements first. Once that is done and approved, that is when you will now start to do design. And then once all the design is done, that is when you now start to develop it. So you cannot do it pari passu. You cannot be doing it side by side. You cannot be doing it simultaneously. That's what it means. So that's what it means, that a linear approach. You do this one, then move to this one. When this one is done, you do this one. And then when this one is done, it's like waterfall. Water does not fall until that particular, the first stage is filled up, right? It has to fill that stage, come and then fall. Fill that stage, then fall. That's how water falls. Okay? That's how water falls, right? It's the same thing. So you have to fill up this stage, do everything that needs to be done in the analysis stage, and then it falls to the next stage, which is design. Do everything that needs to be done in that stage, then it falls, goes to development. Do everything that needs to be done in that stage, then it falls. And then you start doing testing. Do all that needs to be done in that stage, and then it falls, and then you now deploy one big thing. That's waterfall. But there is another approach, okay, that a group of developers in 2021 in Oregon, they came together and said, oh, this is not working for us. We need a better way of doing things. And that is how they came up with Agile. Again, I'm not going to go into details, but I'm not just going to show you. So the Agile way of doing things is iterative and incremental. So they do things in bits and in bobs, in batches. So every part of the SDLC can work simultaneously. So if you have had the requirements for registration and login, you can move it to design. while you are working on the rest of the other requirements. Now, design can be working on that. And if you are done with the design of registration, move into development. Let development start working. You see that? And then, as development is working, if development have finished something, then testing can pick it up. So you can see that there's a continuous stream of work going from cycle to cycle. So they will finish one cycle or one iteration, okay? This is a duration. This iteration could be 1 week. At the skill garage here, we do 1 week. So you remember when I showed you this? This is a sprint. You can see 2 days remaining. So that's a cycle. We are using Agile. That's a cycle, 2 days remaining. We started a few days ago. It's saying 2 days remaining. So by the end of 2 days, we need to have and complete this cycle and move to the next cycle and put some new things in and check what has been done, at this point. So that is how Agile does the work. In Agile, you do not wait for everything to be done. You can do it in bits and in bobs because people want to see value as soon as possible. Are you getting me? They want to see value as soon as possible. They want to see value as soon as possible. So they use what is called an iterative and incremental technique. Iterative in the sense that you can, be working on the requirements as a BA. The designer is doing the design of some of the requirements that has been concluded. The developer is developing some of the design and the requirement that is already set up. And then the testing is actually testing on some of the work that has been developed. Okay, some of the components that have been built. And then if they see that it is enough to be deployed, they deploy. They push it as an update. And then they go again. Push a little bit more. And then they go again. And push a little. So it is iterative and incremental. So you have cumulative outcomes. Incremental. So that is Agile for you. And most companies have adopted the Agile approach to building a product. So that's the waterfall versus Agile. I just told you simply. So if you look at it in a full project, you initiate the project, you plan the project, you can either decide to execute it as an Agile project where you'll be doing increments and close the project, or you can decide to do it as a step-by-step thing in the waterfall execution and bring out a big thing at the end of the day and then close the project. Of course, they have their pros and their cons, the advantages and the disadvantages, but I'm not going into that today. Okay. Now, remember, I'm going to teach you the concept of the MVP now. Now, remember that Agile helps you to build in bits and in bobs. It's an iterative incremental technique. Okay. It therefore means that if Agile is an iterative incremental technique, incremental approach, it therefore means that I can actually get to the point where I can produce the basic version of my product. I don't have to wait for the sun and the moon and the star and the capital and everything to be available. I can actually build the smallest basic version that is a true representation that will bring value to my early adopters. I can build the earliest version through the Agile methodology. That earliest version, that basic version of my product is called the MVP. The same way we are about to, for one of our projects, we are about to release the earliest version of the project. I don't know if you can, maybe let me go into incognito. You can see, this is the earliest version of our product. And we are only releasing it in a certain area so that we can learn. Because the MVP is for you to learn. We are not releasing it in the whole of Canada. We're releasing it in a small area. And the students built this. So you're going to choose where you are. If you're not in this small area, then you choose other and tell us where you are. If you're in some other city, tell us where you are. And then we'll take your information. And then now we now know that people are looking at us from Calgary. And then you submit. You now tell, apologies, we don't deliver to your location yet. But you know what? Just enter your email so that we can reach out to you later. And then you submit. Your location has been saved. Calgary. Now go ahead. If you still want to check us out, check us out. Okay? Check our store out. Okay? If you still want to check us out, just check us out. You see what I'm saying? Okay. So this is the earliest version of that product. Is the simplest version of that product. Is the most basic version of that product. It's called the MVP, the minimum viable product, and it is for learning purpose. It's for you to gain, understand exactly, one or two things from your product. Now, there is a way to build the MVP. I know some of you have seen some things online, but let me show you. This is not the way to build an MVP. And I know that they've taught you that this is the way to build an MVP. It's a lie. This is not the way to build an MVP. This is the right way to build an MVP. Do you know why this is not the right way to build an MVP? Because remember that your MVP is the earliest version of your product. Bearing that in mind, if somebody comes to you and teach you that this is the way to build an MVP, question number one, how is a scooter the earliest version of a car or the basic version of a car? Can you explain that? Yeah? A scooter is a scooter. Hello? A scooter is another product. It's not my product. Do you get me? Hello? Do you understand what I'm saying, guys? Do you understand what I'm saying there? Yeah, if you do, just put yes in the chat. Let me be sure that I'm speaking to an audience, right? How is a scooter the earliest version of a car? It is not. That's not how to build a product. Because you're going to see a lot of junk out there. You're going to, trust me. Okay, you know what? Let me just show you. Yeah, because, sometimes when you do all of these things online, you think, let's do MVP. You're going to see a lot of junk online. Anybody can pick up anything and write these days. Anybody can do that. Okay? Anybody can do that. Can you see this? This is what somebody thought. The greatest example ever. Look at the way they put it. The greatest example ever of MVP. Can you imagine? This is wrong. So you that you're a novice, you don't know anything, you go and look at because there's information on internet, you go and look at the internet. And they will tell you that this is the greatest example of build. How is a bicycle the basic version of a truck? Does that make sense? Anybody can write anything on the internet. I tell you this, true. I'm not joking. You need to, can you imagine this also? Somebody writes this and say, this is it. This is not right. This is wrong. The same thing with this. This is wrong. So you have a lot of wrong things on the internet. You have to be careful. And that is why I said, instead of, you can take what I've given you now and do self-study. And it's fine. I don't blame, I've done self-studies in some cases before, but you have to know the relevant knowledge. You have to ensure you are getting the right thing. Because anybody can spew anything on the internet these days. And they're not liable for what you consume. No, they are not. You are liable for what you consume. They are not liable for what you consume. You see? It's the same thing in religion. Anybody can come out in any religion and say anything. You are liable for what you consume on the internet. They are not liable for what you consume. Do you get what I'm saying? So when you come back here, you begin to see the right way that an MVP is built. Because if you look at this version, this basic version, this is a car. It is a car. The only problem with this car is that it can move like a car. It can turn on like a car. I can steer it like a car. The only problem is that it may not give me all the features I want. For example, a storage behind. You see, like a storage behind, some kind of, heated seats, lovely aesthetics and all of that. It may not give me all of that stuff, but it gives me the basic version of that car that I can drive around, I can kickstart the engine and I can move. Are you getting me? That is an MVP. And then what happens to the MVP? Because of the agile iterative technique, you can build on an MVP and then make the MVP better. That is why you see that product you were using 3 years ago, it now became better after 3 years. They just got you to test their product, and then now they started improving it based on your feedback. So you are here waiting for the sun and the moon and the star and the everything to align before you move on your idea, before you take a step on your career, before you bet on yourself. You're waiting for everything to align. You're waiting for your time to open up. You start with the minimum basic version that is possible. That's life for you. And this is a theory of life. I mean, this is life by itself. I remember when we started TSG, I had one student, just one. I poured my heart out. We didn't have a platform. We didn't have a website. We didn't have all those things. I just wanted to test my curriculum. That's all. I wanted to test my curriculum. So I told the guy, how much can you pay? He said, I can pay this. I said, bring it. After all, I've been teaching my friends for free. Bring it. I just want to test. And my friends have gotten jobs, but these are my friends. They may not tell me the truth, but they got jobs. I know they got jobs. But I want to hear from somebody that is not my friend. So I tested it out. They paid me for it. And then it worked. And I got great review. And that is how we started and we continued. And today, from that one review, okay, we've gone on to 202 reviews, 5-star reviews, 202 reviews from that one. So you're waiting for everything to be okay, to be normal, to be fine before you move. Keep waiting. So you start with the basic version, and then you iterate. In the next iteration, you add some more, you create a new version, you get some feedback, you go back, you iterate, you go back, you iterate until you arrive at what it is that is a standard version, or the quote unquote perfect version of your product. Okay? All right. So again, the MVP is the basic version or basic version of your product. Okay. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm then going to show you that you see this agile framework, or this agile method rather, this agile method. We have a lot of frameworks through which we run agile. Okay. There are a lot of frameworks. Okay. Now, I would like to tell you what a framework is. I'm just looking at the time, so that you can understand the difference between framework and method. They are not the same thing. Yeah, that's why I'm careful with the words that I'm using. Framework, methods are not the same thing. If you did maths in school, you heard about a lot of mathematical methods, right? You don't tweak methods. You don't tweak a mathematical method, a mathematical approach. Have you heard it before, where you tweaked an approach and you got the answer? Have you ever tried that in maths? You tweaked the approach and you got the answer. It's a lie. The approach is the approach. But a framework, you can tweak a framework. Huh? Yeah. Because from the word framework, it's a frame. It just gives you a boundary. Play within the boundary. That's what it means, framework. You don't understand? Let me help you understand. Let me show you something so that you understand. Give me a minute. Let me help you understand something. Give me a minute. I want to help you understand the framework. If I can find it here, I'm going to show you how a frame works. Just give me a minute. Just give me a minute, guys. I'm going to pull that up, and I'll show you the framework. Trying to get, I didn't plan to show this, but since we are there, let me see how I can show it to you. Just give me a minute. Give me a minute. So let me help you understand what we mean by framework. Okay? Okay. So look at this. Okay? Look at this. How many of you have seen this before? How many of you have seen this before? You've seen this before, right? I want to help you understand the framework, how a frame works. Now, how many of you have seen this before in your house, or you have this in your house? Please put yes in the chat. Okay? Put this in the chat. You've seen this before. Okay, perfect. It means that I can work with you. All right. So first, let us understand a framework. Let's talk about how a frame works. Now, this is a frame. Look at how Barry used it. This is how Barry likes it. Look at how Kendra used it. Same frame. This is how Kendra likes it. It works for her. This is the same frame. This is how Ogogo likes it. OG for life. This is how Ogogo likes it. Now, what did you notice? Put it in the chat. What did you notice? What did you notice there? I want to help you understand framework, the difference between a framework and a method. No frame. Is that what you noticed? That there was no frame? There was no frame? Is that what you noticed? It gets bigger. Thank you. It gets bigger. All right. Who else? Who else? What did you notice? Okay. Somebody said no frame. Somebody said it gets bigger. What else did you notice? Anybody? What else did you notice? Okay, let me help you so that we are quick with time. Each person used the frame in the way it suited them. The frame had its limitations, but each person used it the way it suited them. Thank you. They modified it to suit their response or suit their purpose. Thank you, AY. That is how a framework works. You cannot modify a method like in maths. You see, Pythagoras is Pythagoras. You see, almighty formula is almighty formula. The quadratic expression or quadratic equation, all those approaches in math is that approach. You can't say, I want to tweak the approach. You will find yourself in the line in another answer. It's except you are creating another approach. And then that's another approach. Do you understand what I'm saying? But frameworks, you can tweak them to suit your purpose. And that's why I showed you that. Okay, now that you understand it, I'm trying to tell you that in the same manner, over the years, there has been frameworks to help us run Agile. Does that make sense? Now, people use these frameworks the best way they deem fit. But then before you can use a framework, you need to know the framework, isn't it? Is that not? Before you can tweak something, you need to know it, right? That be so. Is that not? So these are the frameworks available in Agile. Now, there are a lot of frameworks, but there are two frameworks, that are the most popular. In this class, I'm going to concentrate on just one. There are two, but in this class, I'm going to concentrate on one, and that one is called Scrum. So that is where all this thing about Scrum, like all of you that have been hearing Scrum, that is where it came from. Now, let me take you a step back so that you understand how it fits into everything we've been saying from yesterday. Because some of you may be lost in the sense that, okay, so how does this fit into what I am doing as a BA, right? I think that's the question in your mind right now. Like, how does this whole thing fit? Okay, relax. Take a step back. Let's start from yesterday, shall we? Let's start from yesterday. So yesterday, I'm going to stop sharing, and you're just going to see my big face. So yesterday, we mentioned that a BA is a change enabler. Remember, that's where we started from. And then we mentioned that the change that it is looking to enable is actually enabled through the vehicle called a project. Remember? So change implemented through the vehicle or the medium of a project. Project has to go through a cycle. It's called the PMLC, the Project Management Life Cycle. So you are doing a project. Don't you want to know how a project is run? So that is how we got here. And in trying to understand how a project is, the cycle of a project, one of the cycles of that project is the execution stage. And for a project which you will be mostly involved in, which is an IT software project, there is a way that project is executed. It's called the SDLC. Are you seeing where we're getting, how we got there? It's called the SDLC. And then the SDLC is a step-by-step approach from the planning to the analysis, to design, to implementation, to testing and integration. And then you go to what? What's the next one? Deployment. And then maintenance, right? And then there are two approaches to running the SDLC: Waterfall, Agile. Agile has become the more popular one in today's world. And there are several frameworks through which you can run it, but two are most popular: Scrum and Kanban. And that is how we got here. Does that make sense? Does that make sense on how we got here, guys? Do you understand how we got here? You understand how we got here? Now? Huh? Making sense? All right. Okay. Okay, so that's how we got here. And I'm going to say one or two things about Scrum, and this is how we're going to get into Scrum Master. Now it's making sense, right? Okay, so this is how we're going to get you into looking into Scrum Master and Product Owner. Because these two roles are a consequence of this framework. They won't be, you won't even know that there would never have been these two roles if Scrum was not here. So Scrum Master, Product Owner was the reason why you have, Scrum is the reason why you have Scrum Master, Product Owner. And I'm going to explain to you in a bit. And you see the connectedness. Now, that person who asked me that question yesterday, what's the difference between a BA and a PO? This is the time to listen. I hope you're in class. Or you ask me, what's the difference between a BA and a Scrum Master? This is the time to listen. All right? And I hope you're in class. All right. So let's get back on track. What I would do is let's take because I know some of you want to take like a water break or something. Now, during this water break, let's take a 5-minute water break. During this water break, I'm just going to tell you, I'm going to recap the, what do they call it now? The offer that I gave you yesterday, okay? I'm going to recap that offer that I gave you yesterday during the break. So we can go on a 5-minute break, just a water break, because I'm going to do a countdown. I'm going to show you, okay? Let's do a Google, let's make it 6 minutes. Timer, 6 minutes break. Give me a minute. I'm going to share my screen right now. Google timer, 6-minute break. Okay. So give me a minute. So during this break, we're going to just go over some of the things we mentioned yesterday regarding the discount, right? So just give me a minute. We're going to take a break right now. So I'm going to stop. I'm going to pause the recording. Okay, so welcome back from the break, and we'll continue from where we stopped. So we stopped at boom, boom, boom. We stopped at, give me a minute, Scrum and Kanban. Yeah. And then we said we're going to look into Scrum, and we're not going to talk about Kanban today because we don't really have the time to do that. So, and even Scrum, I'm not going to say too many things. I just want to pivot to two things, which I promised we were going to do in this course, remember? So there are two things that I promised that we were going to do. We're going to do Scrum, Kanban. I'll talk briefly about Kanban, but not go in depth. I'm just going to talk a bit more about Scrum because there are some things I need to say there, which we've promised to say on this call. That is the Scrum Master, the roles, the Scrum Master and the Product Owner role. Is that okay? All right. Let me confirm that we are still recording because I did a full stuff like this and I forgot to record. I didn't know how to tell the people that I didn't record. It was crazy. So let me be sure that I'm recording. Okay, guys. Okay, I'm recording. Okay. Okay, so Scrum. Let's look at Scrum. Now, let me first help you understand that Scrum, whatever I'm going to be telling you now doesn't mean I'm a genius. No, you can get the same information. So let me show you where you can get this information. It's called the Scrum Guide. Okay, I'm not a genius. So just go on the internet, you see what is called the Scrum Guide. You can download the Scrum Guide. Okay, from scrum.org or from any of these Scrum sites. Okay, now these are some of the developers that in 2001, I guess, one of the 19 developers that came together and created what we call Agile. Okay, what we call Agile today. These are these two. They are two of the 19 developers that came together and they were tired of doing Waterfall. Then they created Agile. Now they also created the Scrum technique. Okay, these two, they created the Scrum technique. Is Jeff Sutherland and Ken Schwaber. Okay, now there's a book written by Jeff Sutherland, in case you're interested in it. It's called Scrum: Doing Twice the art of doing twice the work in half the time. This book, I've read it, I've listened to it a couple times. It's a very good book. It will help you understand Scrum, a lot more, but you don't need to look at this at this point. Okay, I'm just showing you that there are materials out there that explains this thing even further. Now, one of the why I said this is because when I read this book is when I began to understand why Scrum is popular, because big names have used Scrum. NASA have used Scrum. Yeah, big names. FBI, the FBI. This guy called Jeff Sutherland actually implemented Scrum for NASA and implemented Scrum for the FBI. They used it on some of their cases. So I could just imagine that this could be the reason why Scrum became, really very popular. Big names are behind it. Big companies have used it. So maybe that's the reason why it's very popular. I just said that to say that Scrum is a very, it's a widely used technique. Kanban is also, but it's not as Kanban is not as popular as Scrum is. Scrum is like the most widely, uh, okay, so let's move away from that. So these two created, but then this is what I want to show you. It's called the Scrum Guide. Everything that I'm going to say, both the one I'm going to say and the one I will not say, can be found in this book called the Scrum Guide. Okay? And you can get it on the internet. For those of you who write Scrum exams, CSM, CSPO, and for those of you in the UK abroad that want to write that exam, it's usually very expensive. I can get it for you for much cheaper. So if you're looking to write that exam, just contact us and I can help you, with a much cheaper, version, or cheaper, not cheaper version, but cheaper in terms of how much you get to pay. Okay, I hear that it's about £450 to write the exam. I can get you to you for less than that, way less than that. Okay, all right. So at least you will save £100 for sure. Definitely, for sure. Okay, that said, let's look at this. So this is everything you need to know about Scrum. All right. What I'm going to be telling you, or anything I'm going to tell you, you can actually find it here. You can actually find it here. All right. But I would move in between my slide and what you have here. Okay. And then once we get to talking about Scrum Master and product ownership, I will find a balance. Okay. So let's talk about Scrum and Kanban quickly. Or let's talk about Scrum. Now, Scrum is a lightweight framework. You can see even the book call it a framework. They are very careful with the words that they use. Even the book, the guide, calls it a framework. So now you know what a framework is, don't you? Right? So the guide calls it a framework. So why will it call it otherwise? You see? So Scrum is a lightweight framework that helps people, teams, and organizations generate value through adaptive solutions from complex problems. Now, don't be baffled with that definition. It doesn't really mean much. Okay, it's just telling you that, listen, Scrum is that kind of adaptive technique or adaptive, framework that you can use to solve complex problems. Okay, it's lightweight, but many people find it difficult to be able to comprehend it or use it appropriately. Okay, but this is the next thing. The next thing is what I want to bring to your notice. This one, that Scrum is founded on empiricism and lean thinking. Don't forget this. Scrum is founded on empiricism and lean thinking. And that empiricism is not the same thing as emperor. The emperor, the conqueror is here. No, because when somebody hears empiricism now, it's emperor. That's what is coming to your mind. It's not emperor. Now, empiricism is the same thing as saying, when you were doing chemistry, you heard of empirical formula. How many of you heard of empirical formula? Aha, is the same word. Okay, empirical, kind of experimental, sort of that kind of thing. Yeah. So you heard of empirical formulas, in maths, in chemistry, when you went into the lab, you heard of empirical. Something is empirical. Okay. Now that's the same thing here, empiricism. So let me break it down for you. Now, when you say Scrum is founded on empiricism, what does that mean? What that simply means is that Scrum actually looks at what we have done before. Learn from that experience. Take the learning and uses it in the next experience to make it better. So when you talk about empirical formulas or empirical methods capitalize on experience just to make the next experience better. Okay, that's what empirical is. So this empiricism that they said here is taking knowledge from something you've done previously and then using it to make the new experience better. Maybe you didn't get it. Let me explain it a little bit further for you. So let me take you a step backwards here. Remember that in Agile, you do it iteratively, right? So meaning that you can have this iteration for like 1 week, have this other iteration 1 week, another iteration for the next week, right? Now, when you go through this process in 1 week, you would have learned some things in the process. There are some things that you would have done that, didn't really work the way you wanted it to work, that kind of thing. You would have learned those things. You would have understood what they are. You would have discussed it and then know the way forward. And then based off that, when you move to the next iteration, now you're getting it. When you move to the next iteration, you can make it better based on the fact that you gain certain things. You learn certain things from the previous iteration. Does that make sense? Now, you may think that I'm wasting my time telling you this, but for those of you who know how to use small information, you know how it's funny, we are all mature there. I don't expect anybody to be under 18. You know how, God bless the women. Do you know how you give women, you just give them a single sperm and they produce a baby? That's the way this is. For those of you who are like women, you're very productive like women that take one small thing, and that's the way women are. And women are very productive on my courses. I give it to them. I'm not saying that the men are not productive. You guys are very productive. I'm a man, of course, I can't be biased. All right. But what I just said here makes a lot of sense. It only takes somebody who has an open mind to be able to see how to use that information that I just gave you now. Let me give you an example. I went for an interview and the interviewer asked me, this is a real interview. I'm not giving you story tales by moonlight, a real interview. So I went for an interview. It was the director of product, a huge consultant, big consultant, a director of product. She asked me this question. She was like, how would you rate, okay? She asked me, how would you rate the team, okay? How would you rate the team that you worked with? That was the question she asked me. How would you rate the team that you worked with? For a while, I just paused to think, what exactly does this woman want me to say? Do you understand? What does she want me to say? Does she want me to tell her that my team is a 4/5 or a 5/5 or a 6/5? What is she expecting? And then it hit me. It hit me. Scrum. It hit me like a flash. It just hit me. And I was like, that is it. And that was how I was able to answer that question. Now, some of you are wondering, how did you answer the question? How many people want to know? You want to know how I answered that question using Scrum? What I just told you now. You want to know how I answered that question using what I just told you now? Now, I'm just trying to tell you how when you give a lady small something, they can use it to produce big thing. All right. So just in case I'm not going to tell you, you can take what I've just given you now to use it. So when she asked me that question, I say a lot of you are curious to know. So let me tell you how I answered it. So when she asked me, how would you rate the team? And I think it was kind of like the second to last question, but this one blew her mind. How would you rate the team you worked with? And then I said, okay, the team I worked with, I was gathering my thoughts. I teach my students to do that from time to time, especially on interviews when, sometimes they throw you a curveball. You were not expecting that kind of question, right? So it's okay for you to repeat the question, and try to get yourself together. You're not penalized for it, okay? Or act as though you did not hear it the first time. Yeah, it's okay. You can do that. You heard it, but you can act like it just to gain time. I'm just teaching you a few things about interviews right now. So you can say, especially for, oh, sorry, I didn't really get you there. Can you just take that again? While she's saying taking that again, you're not listening. You already had, because you heard it the first time. You're just trying to gather flash quick thoughts, right? Yeah, you can do that. And then I started like, so that was what I was doing. I was like, rate my team. That's interesting. A lot of things are coming to my mind right now, which I would like to tell you. I'm still thinking, but no gaps. All right. I'm curious to know if you were referring to the team I started with or the team I ended up with. That's how I started that answer. Is it the team I started with or the team I ended with? Because If you're referring to the team I started with, that team was a newly formed team. We had never worked before. We didn't understand one another. There was no cohesiveness. These developers, designers, testers that had never worked before. So that team was crude, new, naive, non-cohesive. But here is the thing. We utilized a framework called Scrum in our project. And what Scrum does is that by the reason of its empirical nature, you see how I brought this in now? Are you seeing how I brought this in now? By reason of empiricism, we are able to get better every iteration. So what that meant was that as we went from one iteration to the next iteration, we were able to do some retrospects. We were able to do some retrospective to understand our process, to understand how we participated, to understand what worked well and what didn't work well. And as we went on from one iteration to the next iteration, my team became more cohesive. My team could now understand how they sized the features. My team were becoming more self-organized. And by the time we ended the project, we had become the A team. In fact, there was this particular project. Nobody believed we were going to produce the MVP for that project in 10 weeks. But this crude team that started as, call it a 0-star team, ended up as the A-star team that produced an MVP in just 10 weeks. How? We applied the principles of Scrum. We understood what worked well for us, what didn't work well for us, and we took those action points, those learnings into the next set of iterations. And as a result, my team went from forming to storming to norming to performing. And right now, if I was to give you a rating for the team that I ended up with, permit me to say that team is a 6/5. So talking about rating for the team I worked with, the team I started with would have been a 0, a 1, or a 5-star team. But the team I ended up with, because of the way we used the technique, the framework of Scrum, okay, we were able to end up with a performing team that I would rate a 6/5. Why? Because we went above and beyond and understood ourselves well, more than any other team that I've worked with. Wow. She leaned back in her chair. I could see the reaction in her eyes, and she was like, I've not heard this answer. I've not heard this answer this way before. And that's why I was telling you, little things like this, you can use them. They sound stupid. You don't know why I'm taking my time to say some things, but little things like this. Of course, I got the job in the afternoon. If you go on my profile, it's the one called the Bounteous. If you go on my profile, it's the one called Bounteous. It's a big consulting firm, very big. They're huge, they're big boys, right? Yeah, I got it that afternoon. That afternoon, they were negotiating the offer with me, right? So again, when we talk things like this, don't just wave it off. Don't just let it go. That's what I'm trying to say. Every little thing is important. Every little thing we say, the minutest detail, is important. Yeah, it's important. That's why, you need to, when we are teaching you, we need to teach you to understand it from first principles. You understand? Not this tiki-taka kind of learning. You need to learn it from first principles, understand it, and be able to deliver it properly. Okay, let's move away from this and go into the things we need to do today. So Scrum is founded on empiricism. Now you understand what I mean by empiricism. And lean thinking. What is lean thinking? Lean thinking is avoiding wastage. Anything that helps you avoid wastage is lean thinking. Okay? So lean thinking is actually you avoiding wastage. Now I'm going to fast forward a few things. I'm not going to say a few things. Why? Because I know you can always look at them by yourself. There's what we call the Scrum pillars. There are 3 Scrum pillars: transparency, inspection, and adaptation. Transparency in the sense that I'm going to be quick bit fast here. I would explain later, maybe in the boot camp or something, but I'm not, because this is not where I wanted to go. I want to go to the Scrum Master and talk about that. Okay. So the Scrum pillars. So when they say Scrum pillar, they're like, if you don't see this thing and you are practicing Scrum, Bagbe, it's not Scrum. Forget it. It's not Scrum. You understand? Like, that's what they're telling you. That if you are doing Scrum, if you say you are doing Scrum and these 3 things are not there, it's like a pillar now. If you don't have pillars, you can't have a house standing now, right? So that is what these 3 pillars are. Transparency. Transparency in the sense that everybody involved in that work must know what is going on at a particular time T. At any time T. Whether you are receiving the work or giving the work or doing the work. Do you understand? So whether you are giving the work or you are receiving the work, you have to be aware of what is happening in that work. So that is what transparency is about. Let me give you an example. For example, let me give you an example. So when you come in here, can you see this work? Everybody is on this Jira. So we all know who is doing what, when they are doing it, at what time they are doing it. Do you understand? We actually can see. Everything is transparent here on Jira. We know what they are working on now. We know what is currently in the backlog. We know what has been deprioritized. We know how many things are. Do you understand? So it's transparent. So they're saying that that's the only time Scrum can work, when we are transparent, when everybody knows what is happening at any time T. Okay, let's go on. So transparency, inspection. Now, inspection there means that, because we are doing this thing in iterations, we need to find time to inspect the work. Meaning we need to find time to check what we are doing, to see if we are doing the right thing. And if we are not doing the right thing, we need to do what is called adaptation. So meaning that at every time, we must find time to see if we are doing the right thing. And if we are not doing the right thing, we can bring it back on track. That is adaptation. So these 3 things, we know what is being done, we check it. If it is not being done properly, we quickly bring it back on track. Transparency, inspection, adaptation. There are 5 Scrum values. Again, I'm going to take this quickly. 5 Scrum values. What do they mean by 5 Scrum values? What they're saying is that the people that are in this thing called Scrum, this is what they should look like. These are the things they should exhibit. They should exhibit commitment. They should exhibit focus. They should exhibit openness. In fact, I have a story about that openness. The first time that I worked, Gala. The first time that I worked, in a tech environment, we are having what is called daily stand-up, which is one of the Scrum events. And then a developer opened his mouth and said that he could not do something. He was finding it difficult to do something. That was the first time I was hearing that somebody was paid for something and he can come back to the people that paid him and tell them that he cannot do it. I was shocked. Because I was coming with my Nigerian mentality. I didn't know that there was something called Scrum. And one of the values there is openness. Hey, I was shocked. Maybe for you now, you're not shocked, but then, because I didn't really understand it. And then I saw this happen over and over again. And then when I came here and I read it and I was like, oh, now I understand. Because you have to be open about your challenge. If you're not open about your challenge, this is where the Scrum Master comes in. Because the Scrum Master, okay, I will tell you about the Scrum Master. Don't let me talk about that. You need to be open. So openness is one of the things. I'm not going to quickly, I won't say too much. Openness is one of the things. So what that developer was doing is that, listen, there's a challenge here. We are not going to make progress if you guys are thinking this thing is has been worked on. So please, I want you guys to please, if there's anybody that can do this thing, come and show me or help me so that we can move on. And that's what Scrum is saying. We need to be open so that we can make progress. Then there's respect. Of course, you're going to respect that this guy can get his work done. And then there's courage to do the impossible. All right. Okay, I'm not going to say too much about that. Let's move on. This is where I want to actually land. There's what we call the Scrum roles. So each time you see Scrum Master, that they are looking for a Scrum Master, it just simply tells you that they are what? They are using Scrum. Abi? Because Kanban does not have a Scrum Master. Waterfall does not have a Scrum Master. So Scrum Master is a role that came as a result of Scrum. So it then tells you that when you see the role of a Scrum Master, you're actually using Agile. Simple. So Scrum identifies 3 roles: Scrum Master, Product Owner, and Development Team. These 3 roles: Scrum Master, Product Owner, and the Development Team. These are the 3 roles that Scrum identifies. Okay? These are the 3 roles that Scrum identifies: the Scrum Master role, the Product Owner role, and the Development Team. Now, I'm going to go through these roles one after the other. Now, but let me talk about the Development Team. Now, Scrum, apart from the Scrum Master and Product Owner, every other person working on the team is called the part of the development team. That's according to Scrum. Whether you're a project manager, product manager, business analyst, front-end developer, Scrum will tell you that there are no titles. But that's textbook. That's just textbook. That's textbook. In reality, there are titles. So if you want to pass an exam, you see the difference for those of you shouting about the exam, the difference between exam and reality. We use one of them. Scrum is saying no title, but when you get on the job, there are titles. And you recognize those titles and respect those titles. Do you get what I'm saying? Okay. So for the purpose of the exams, development team is project manager, product manager, or any other person doing the work. They are cross-functional, meaning they have all the necessary skill to get the work done. So if you need a data analyst, he's there. If you need a user experience designer, he's there. If you need a, cross-functional team. Okay? And self-organizing. Self-organizing in the sense that they can decide how they want to do the work. That's what we mean by self-organizing. Now, that we have that one out of the way, let's now focus on the Scrum Master and the Product Owner. Who are they? What are these 2 people? This guy called the Scrum Master. Who is he? This Scrum Master you've been hearing. Who is he? What does he do? Okay, so those are the 2 things I'm going to talk about. And probably we'll just round off today and then try and bring everything together. And then I can take some questions, loads of questions. All right. And we'll just veer into 1 or 2 things and we'll call it a day. All right. And then for those of you coming into the bootcamp, some of you already made payment yesterday. So thank you for that, for trusting and believing in us, right? So let's move. Who is the Scrum Master? Now, the Scrum Master, sorry to say, I know if I tell you he's the master of Scrum, you say, no, that's very easy, right? But it's the reality. I know some people will tell you online, no, he's not the master of Scrum. But honestly, he's the master of Scrum. Why? I'll tell you why. Because this Scrum Master is the person who makes sure that you are doing Scrum the way Scrum needs to be done. It's like the referee in a game of soccer. You see? That is who the Scrum Master is. It's kind of like a referee. Not really one, all right? But I'll explain a bit more. The Scrum Master is responsible for facilitating the Scrum process and ensuring that the team is delivering value. Now, for facilitating, this guy is mainly a facilitator. That's why you can see people have 2, 3 Scrum Master jobs. They are jumping from one meeting to another, and I'll tell you why. And it's one of the easiest roles. Okay, maybe I'm not saying it well. It's one of the easiest roles you can do. But is it one of the easiest roles you can get? I don't know about that. All right, because every role is not, there's no role that is too easy to get. Even customer service these days competition is there. So everywhere there's competition. So I don't know where there's no competition. Competition is everywhere. So whether you're going for the customer service that when I came to Canada that year, my wife just got like bam bam. Now they are rejecting people in customer service. Can you imagine? Customer service job. They're rejecting people, giving people rejection. That's how far we've gone, right? So there's no job that is not competitive. So don't deceive yourself. It's just that some are more competitive than the other. All right. So, but every job is competitive. So why wouldn't you try? Yeah. Okay. But let's leave that aside. The Scrum Master job, all right, is to facilitate the Scrum process. So meaning that if you must facilitate the Scrum process, say you will not know Scrum. If you want to facilitate the Scrum process, is it not the Scrum that you want to facilitate that you will know? So meaning that the Scrum Master, first and foremost, needs to understand Scrum and know Scrum. Know that, oh, this Scrum is based on this pillar, is based on these values, is based on this event. So there are what is called Scrum event. I'm going to show you. So there's what is called Scrum event. Okay. You need to know the Scrum event and what happens in those events, right? So a Scrum Master has to have an absolute knowledge of Scrum and what Scrum entails, the events, what happens in this event, the sprint, the planning, the sprint planning, there's another one, story estimation. He needs to know all these things because it cannot facilitate what you don't know. So you need to know daily stand-up. What is that? What happens there? Sprint review. What happens there? Okay? Sprint retro. What happens there? Do you understand? Because for you to facilitate a process, you need to understand what it is, understand the artifacts, that there's what is called the product backlog, there's what is called the sprint backlog, which I may not be able to get into today. There's what is called the increment. You need to understand everything. So this guy's job starts and ends in Scrum. Can you imagine? So let me make that a bit more explanatory for you. So you have this team, they are using the Scrum framework. They will meet daily to do what is called a daily stand-up. Somebody needs to make sure they are meeting. Somebody needs to facilitate that meeting and ensure that they are getting the best out of it. Because this is a technique that people are not really used to. They will tell you they are used to it, but they're not used to it. For example, a developer who is asked to come on daily stand-up every day will think that you want to micromanage him. It is the Scrum Master that will call him aside and say, no, we are not trying to micromanage you. This is what happens in a daily stand-up. And this is why we are doing, you see, you're a facilitator. You're also a motivator. You're motivating people to ensure that they do the things that they need to do. You're not another project manager. Although project managers are sometimes, that role is sometimes mixed with the Scrum Master. So let's take it one after the other. The Scrum Master is a process facilitator. So there are certain processes that happens within the project. Certain events, like the demo, like the retro. The retro, you're not supposed to be calling people's name and pointing fingers. That's one of the things that the Scrum Master is going to educate his team on. Make sure that the right people are in the room. Make sure that the project manager has sent the invite to the right people. You see? So he's making sure the right things are in the right places. Making sure that we are having the meetings that we need to have. So if you have a meeting like a stand-up and the developer says he has a problem and somebody says, I can help you with that problem, the Scrum Master should quickly jump in and say, okay, can we create a time for you people to meet so that you can resolve this problem? You see, he's facilitating the process and making sure that we can bring value at the end of the day. Do you understand? How difficult is that kind of job? How difficult? What is there? He's facilitating the processes. So you just simply need to know what are the processes in Scrum, what are the events, how are they run, you see? And then you can easily facilitate the processes. Where collaboration is needed, you facilitate it. Make sure they meet. Make sure the project manager has put and booked a time together for that. Are you getting what I'm saying? The next thing is that he helps to build self-organizing team. Self-organizing does not mean they don't have a leader. Self-organizing means that they know what to do within themselves. And if you're not seeing that happen, if you're not seeing the result, then you can call them and say, what is happening? It's like somebody who is there like a big brother. You understand? Like a big brother that is there to say, Chukudi, come. Chukudi, it's 3 weeks now. What is happening now? Chukudi. You've not seen any progress here now. It's like a big brother trying to, you do understand? That is the Scrum Master's job. He removes impediments, escalates when needed. Let me explain that. So what that means is, for example, I've been in situations where we are working with another team, and that team needs to give us an API, an application program interface, or some dependency. We have some dependency on another team. Now, instead of my developers to be busy running after it, the Scrum Master will say, Peshi, don't worry, I got your back. I will go for it. I'll go and look for it. I'll go and make sure that you have it. You focus on your job. So he makes sure that his team is focused, and he will do all the job of getting whatever needs to be gotten. And if there is any blocker, any problem that they encounter, he will make sure that that problem is taken off and eliminated. Are you seeing that? If it's the problem of motivation, he will make sure that he calls. There was one time I discovered that that's why I said sometimes most of the time I've always done a Scrum Master role and a BA role at the same time. Now, it's not ideal, but I mean, companies want to pay less and use you more. yeah, that's it. They want to use you for 3 jobs and pay you the salary for 1 or 2 people. Yeah, because they want to also save, right? Yeah, it happens. Absolutely, 100%. Right? So I discovered that she wasn't really as pumpy as before. What's happening? Oh, it's because our front-end developers left. So she's the only one handling the front-end development. And she felt like because she was doing the work, we didn't want to employ people. So she got demoralized. I had to go and speak with her, encourage her, and tell her that we are actually trying to recruit somebody just to get her motivated to do the work, because otherwise it's one of the things you will do as a Scrum Master. Make sure whenever my team, whenever they want to present their work demo, you see the way I'm pumping them and praising them in the front of the stakeholders. Oh, my team, they've worked above and beyond in this week. What you're about to see today is fire. The demo today is going to be fire. My team, you see the way my team's head will be swelling, because they will want to do in next iteration, they want to come pumped in. So I am like their number 1 fan. You understand? Wait a minute. Okay? I'm like their number 1 fan. You see what I'm saying? So he removes the impediment and escalates it when needed. If it's something he cannot handle, then, like for example, that case, I had to go and tell the project manager, let's bring 1 or 2 people now to help this girl. And after I push and push and push, they now opened a vacancy and got somebody, and she was happy. Somebody was coming in. He helps to inspect and adapt. So inspect and adapt is part of looking at the work and looking at what has been done in the last iteration. Is there anything we can improve? Is there anything that didn't go well? Is there anything we can make better? Can you see? Empowers the team through servant leadership. That is a whole lot of discussion by itself. Servant leadership, that topic, servant leadership, is a full discussion by itself, right? And if you check servant leadership, you'll see a lot of things on the internet. So let's go there. If you check and say servant leadership, you see what servant leadership, sorry. Okay. He's not like the traditional leader, okay? He is more concerned about empowering people. That is the servant leader. Is more concerned about empowering people, giving them the tool that they need to work, giving them what it takes for them to be their best selves. If it is training that they need, he will identify it and train them. You see? If it is motivation they need, he will identify it and motivate them. If it is somebody that needs to be weeded out of the group, he will identify it and probably speak to the person that needs to be spoken to. He needs to make sure that that team has moved through the different versions of a team, from storming to numbing to performing. He's interested in progress of the team. And he does this by directly or indirectly empowering the team. So let's keep going. So you can see the Scrum Master is more or less a facilitator. Okay? All right. So helps create visible information to show teams' progress and norms. Now, this one has to do with, reports. Okay, there are certain reports that you may be involved in. For example, there's what we call the burn down chart, burn up chart, and all those charts, right? Yeah, a Scrum Master may produce those charts just to show us where we are on the project, what is happening on the project. So he could create all this visible information just to help us see, what is happening. For example, when you go to Jira, you have reports. You see the burn down chart, the burn up chart. Typically, the burn down chart and the velocity chart are usually the ones that we want to look at. I can't explain those things now, but he will give you, like, just to help you see the work that is being done. Okay. And then he protects the team from outside disturbance. Put all of that together, and you get what a Scrum Master does. He's more of a facilitator of the Scrum process, making sure that they are doing what needs to be done within the process. Okay. Now, he also has an obligation to the organization. So he needs to be able, especially if it's an organization that is not doing Agile, he needs to be able to train the organization to take them there. So he could also be called a trainer. Yeah, because he will train the organization to ensure that they get there. Now, you may look at all I just said now and say, that makes sense. But hold on. How would you help these individual components and individual people like the product owner if you don't know what they do? How? If you don't know how to write user stories, which is requirements, how would you help them to write good requirements? How would you facilitate that? And that is why a Scrum Master needs to know what a BA knows. Not everything, but at least you need to have an understanding of what the BA does. You need to have an understanding of, what the people in your team, what they do. At least a small understanding. And by going through projects, going through a training like this is how you know. So that's what the Scrum Master does. Now let's talk about the product owner. What does the product owner, what does he do? I'm going to explain this quickly in the simplest way possible. And you will see where the product owner and the BA intersect. The product owner, from that word alone, in your mind, you're already thinking he owns the product, right? In your mind, you're already thinking, product owner, he owns the product. Something like that. It's just that there's a little bit more to that. All right? Now, from the definition, the product owner is accountable for maximizing the value of the product resulting from the work of the Scrum team. Now, hold on. What exactly does that mean? Now, we have a full course, a full module on product ownership. So this is just a little aspect. Okay, this is just a little thing I'm showing you. We have a full module, one full module, all right, on product ownership. But I'm just going to give you a tip of the iceberg again. Now, the product owner, think about it. Let me take you back here. Let me take you back here. Here. Let me take you back here. Let me take you back here. So when you want to build a product, you will have a list of items, a list of features that you want to build, right? There's a list of features that make up that product. Is that not? Can I see yes in the chat so that I know you're not sleeping on me yet? I know it's almost 10. Don't worry, we'll get you off the call, but we still have some time. When you're building a product, you have a list of features, right, that make up that product. Good. At least you agree with me, which is something like this, right? Now, can you tell me, are all features the same? Do they provide the same value? Do all features on that product provide the same value? No. There are some features that you can actually do without, and you'll still be okay using that product. How many of you know that? That there are some features you can do without, and you can still be okay using that product. If you doubt me, look at the car you are driving and look at the car that somebody else is driving. There are some things that other model has that your own model does not have. But you are still using your own car. It's still providing value for you. So it then means that when we come here to say that a product owner is accountable for maximizing the value of the product. Hold on, what does that mean? Think about it. The features in a product is what actually determines the values or the value you get in that product. True of us. The features, the value, feature, value, feature, the value. Okay. If the feature is what determines the value, and we say that the product owner is accountable for maximizing the value, replace it. It means that the product owner is actually responsible for maximizing the features in a product. So he's the one who will liaise with the business to say, we are going to do this one here. We're not going to do this one now. This is the one we are going to do this week. This is the one we are not going to do. This one is what we're going to focus on. Are you getting the point now? He's maximizing the value of the product resulting from the work of the Scrum team. In Scrum, we have what is called product backlog. I'm not going to say too much about that again because of our time. Okay? You have what is called product backlog. Product backlog has the list of everything that you're going to do. Everything. Everything you're ever going to do in that particular product, the product backlog will contain it. But guess what? This is where the product owner comes in. He's going to rearrange the priority of each of these features, because each of these features has different values. Some are more valuable than the other. So we will focus on the more priority, more valuable items compared to the rest. Now, how would you know what is valuable? These are some of the things we teach in the product owner module. Because you may be thinking, I remember one particular project. We were starting with the search function. The business came and said, no, we need this one now. We need the payment now. Because this one is going to, we're getting to Black Friday. We need the payment feature to be optimized so that we can make revenue. That is the bottom line. So we had to change. We had to reprioritize and bring that one up and take that one down. So there's what we call the product backlog. Okay. So if I show you, let me see if I have something here. If I don't have something here. Okay. There's what we call the product backlog. Give me a minute. Let me show you. Let me give you an example. There's what we call the product backlog. This is like your product backlog. This thing here. So it's the list of all the things. Let's assume it's the list of all the things, okay, that you're going to be doing for that product. Now, maybe in iteration one or sprint one, you want to work on some items. The product owner will make sure that the high priority items are at the top. Like this one is at the top. If I show you this now, it will tell you, look at history, ranked higher. Can you see that? Meaning that when I took it up, I ranked it higher. When I took it down, I ranked it lower. So meaning that on the backlog, when something is at the top, it is more valuable. And that is why when you saw this, and then you saw deprioritized, you can see that these are items that we didn't really want. They are deprioritized at the bottom. So in the product backlog, the product owner is the owner of the product backlog. and he ensures that he prioritizes the product backlog based on the value. So he's responsible for the backlog and story priority. He will accept or reject the work. He will help to define when it's done. Knowledgeable, empowered, and engaged. Manages stakeholder and sponsor expectations. So hold on. Manages, stakeholder. Does that not look like what a BA would do? Does that not look like what a BA would do? Looks like what a BA would do. So you see that a BA necessarily would also do what a PO would do. A PO would necessarily do what a BA would do. These days, hardly would you find a BA and a PO on the same project. Take my word for it. Take my word for it. Hardly would you find a BA and a PO because they will do the same thing. So the companies these days just hire either a PO or a BA. So why don't you learn both? Motivate the team, celebrate success, can contribute to and help the team communicate their product vision. It's another module where I talk about the product vision, I talk about the product backlog, I talk about the product priority. There's a lot of things that I talk about on that, but this is the basics of the product owner role. This is the basics. Now, if you look at where you are right now, there are certain things in your previous work that was done to make life better, or to make the company better, or to make the product better, or there are certain products that you used in carrying out your work. Listen, if you can explain that product properly and talk about it with the understanding and the backdrop of what you learn as a product owner, BA, or Scrum Master, you have yourself an experience. That's all I'm going to say about that. There's more to say, but that's all I'm going to say about that. If you know what I'm saying, you would take that and you run with it. If you can identify where there was a problem, a solution, and by reason of understanding of the things you know as a BA or a PO, you have a project. And you can use it on your resume. Yesterday, I asked you a question. Who told you that work experience is measured by the number of years? Who told you? Was it written somewhere? Or that is what you came to meet? A status quo that you came to meet? Did you challenge it? Who told you work experience is the number of years? Think about that statement. I have a full 2.5-hour class on it that helps you to realize that all these things you are talking about, I don't have experience. I don't have experience. You have experience. You're the only one who doesn't know it. I'll leave you with an example. I've been a lecturer for a long time, both in Nigeria and in the UK. I've been a lecturer in both places, in the university. I've taught students. I've created curriculums, right? Now, I'm going to leave you with this question. Don't give me an answer. Don't give me an answer. If you have a lecturer that teaches chemical engineering students, for example, okay? Chemical thermodynamics, second-year students. So let me give you a visual so that you see what I'm talking about. So if you have lecturer 1, okay? He has 5 years of experience, like you guys call it. But in these 5 years of experience, he's been teaching second-year students, okay? Chemical thermodynamics. And then you have another lecturer B. He has 2.5 years of experience. He taught 200 level students. Chemical thermodynamics. He taught 300 level students. Strength of materials. He taught 400 level students. Engineering economics. And he taught 500 level students. Fluid mechanics 3. Who has the most experience? Lecturer 1 or lecturer 2? Don't think about it. Who has the most experience? It's a good debate. Because you can, okay, why would you say lecturer 2? But lecturer 1 has 5 years of experience in chemical thermodynamics. So that flaws the debate, or that flaws all we've always known. That's why you have to think outside the box. Who told you that the right measurement for experience is time or years? Okay, let's assume that this one, you did not understand it. Let me give you another one. You are a cashier in a bank or a teller in a bank. You've been doing tellering, as if there's anything like that, for 5 years. No, let's say 7 years. Because some people don't give up. Huh? As far as teller goes, it's a repetitive job. How many of you agree with me? It's a repetitive job. At what point does your experience plateau? At what point are you still learning something new? So, are you really going to say he has 7 years of experience? Is 7 years really the number of years of experience? At what point did experience stop? So, for those of you saying, I don't have experience, listen, you're looking at the wrong yardstick. I can tell you that for free. That's the only thing I can tell you for free. The rest, you have to pay to hear it. I just gave you that it's a 2.5-hour lecture, and I'm not telling you, this is not something you see on YouTube. I'm telling you the fact. I did my research myself, I did everything, and I can tell you for sure, this is something I've been teaching for the past 3 years, and it has worked. Okay? So for those of you saying, I don't have experience, you are the only one who thinks you don't have experience. There is experience that you can leverage. Okay? There is experience that you can leverage. For sure. Okay? But just take that with you. Keep that at the back of your mind and try to think about it. Who says that experience is measured by the number of years you spent on a job? And then there's one last thing I'm going to leave you with. It's actually the definition of experience. There are 3 definitions of experience in this thing, but we only run with 2. We left 1. I didn't write this. This is what I explain. This is what I explain in mine. All right. So that brings us to the end of this class. You can actually leverage your previous experience, okay, to transition into mid-senior. So if you're seeing people who transitioned into this tech thing and they became senior people or mid-level roles, and you're asking, how did they do it? Most of them are like you. They transitioned without experience, right? Quote and unquote, without experience, quote and unquote, because of course there was some level of experience there. It was not totally blank. And then they now added knowledge to it. Okay, added some knowledge to it, added some skill set to it, added some technique to it. All right. And then they were able to take that to the next level. Okay. Now, what some people want to do is they've heard so many people tell them so many things. And one of the things that people tell them is, go and get this certification and you will get a job. in my few years of teaching this, I can tell you categorically, without trying to make you feel any kind of way, that more than 90% of the people who get a job on my platform actually got a job before they got their certificate. For example, like a BA certificate. Now, there are the low-hanging fruits that you can do, like, all these Scrum certificates, you can do that one. I would advise you to do that one, okay? But you see, you're going to go and look to do CBAB or BCS or, relax. Know the skill set first. Get these low-hanging fruit ones, like the CSM and the CSPO. I'm giving you advice for free. Start with that. Learn the skill. Gain some hands-on, and you're good to go. Leave all those things. You have to go and get a CBAB. You have to go and get a certification. Honestly, yeah, not necessary. Now, there are some students that come to me and I tell them, go and get it. And I have a reason for telling them to go and get it. Because of where they are looking for a job. For example, if you're in Canada and you're in Saskatchewan and you come to me, I'll tell you, if you're looking for a job within Saskatchewan, go and get it. Right? Yeah, because I know the climate. I know the climate. It could give you an advantage. There are places where, now, I'm not saying that certifications are rubbish, but you see this business analysis that I've been teaching, this one, that's one is the one I know. I don't know about others. You can get certification for Salesforce and it works there. But you see this BA, this one, I know it like the back of my palm. It's not certification that will give you the job. Take it from me. You see those people shouting certification, go and check. They teach certification. And they want to come and pay for a certification course. I'm not trying to water anybody's down. I mean, you can pay for a certification course, that's fine. And of course, you can do it by yourself. Go to Watermark Learning, subscribe for 2 months, do their practice paper, read your book, because you still have to go and read at the end of the day, and they will still teach you the textbook when you go and pay for that certificate, right? And you can still fail if you didn't study properly. It's the truth. Yeah, it's textbook. It's textbook. For example, the Babel Guide is textbook. It's what I call ideal gas. The Babel Guide is what I call ideal gas. Quote me anywhere. I'll post this on YouTube, so I'm not afraid. It's what we call ideal gas. How many of you are science students? How many of you? You did science in school? Put yes in the chat if you did. You did science in school. I'm not asking you a question, so don't think I'm going to ask you a question. I'm not asking you. You don't need to how many of you are science students? Okay. Did you hear about ideal gas? You heard about ideal gas in school, right? You heard about ideal gas. They taught you about ideal gas. All your years in school, all your theory was based on ideal gas. No be so. All the theories they taught you was based on ideal gas. True of us. P1V1, P1V1 over T1 equals P2V2 over T2. All those things was based on ideal gas. Is it not? Good. When you went into the lab, when you went into the laboratory, did they show you ideal gas? Did they show you ideal gas? What did they show you? Real gas. It's funny, right? It's funny, right? They showed you real gas. Boyle's law, Charles' law, all that was based on idealism. It's based on when we get to the real thing, we will now show you the deviation. No be so. I'm a science student. We'll show you how it deviates from the real thing. So ideal was just there so that we can measure the deviation that, of all of these other real gases and understand how real gases work. It's the same thing, guys. I'm not kidding you. These things you're going to read in the textbook is ideal. That's not what you face in the work. The work is a different layer on its own. It's a different ball game on its own. So ideal gas is there. It's useful. It's not bad. Ideal gas is there. But when you get into the lab, Baba, now real gas you go face. Now real gas you go shake. You use the real gas. It's the same thing here with these things. All right? You can read the Scrum guide from now till tomorrow, go and pass an exam. Doesn't mean that you're a Scrum Master. You can read a BABOP guide, do the exam, pass. Doesn't mean you're a business analyst. Does that make sense? So, and there's a lot of things I would say. Next week, our first week is open to everybody. Okay, our bootcamp first week is open to everybody. So you'll get the link for our first week. But after the first week, you can join. So I will say a few things more about certification. I have a full 2-slide on it. My research, I've done my research. So before I tell you something, I've done my own study too. All right, so that I can be bold to say it anywhere. All right, so that they're not gonna lock me up like VDM. I can tell you exactly how I got it and how I sourced it. All right, so that's it. And I'm going to go into the Q&A. So if you have some Q&A, if you want to talk, please raise your hand. Right now it's question and answer, is Q&A time, right? And I can let you talk. You want to ask about the bootcamp again, quickly before I open the floor. Our bootcamp for your region is beginning next week on the 16th. It's on a Tuesday, right? Now you can join our week 1 for free, okay? And you can join in week 2 if you decide to go on. That's fine. So you'll get the invites to join for free. You can come here and register. So registration does not, you don't need money to register. Just come in, register here. You don't need register. But if you want to go beyond that, you need to make payment, okay? And today I am giving you a huge discount, okay? That's going to end by the end of today, okay? By the end of today, in the next few hours, right? So take advantage of that. Use the code, okay? Off 30 for this one, for the one-time payment. And you can do for the other one, 3-time payment, you can do off 25. Off 25. Okay? Apply that. And you have the link. I'm going to put the link again in there. I think I have the link here. Give me a minute. I'm going to put the link. I'm going to put the link back in there in the chat. Okay. And for those of you who want to get the brochure, just come on the website. I'm going to put the link here. Okay. And if you're not in our Telegram group for Europe, Africa, I'm going to put the link for the Telegram group also. All right. I'm going to put the link for the Telegram group here. Okay, so you have everything there. So please put your questions now. It's time for Q&A. I'm going to answer your questions. Okay. All right. So time to answer questions. We're done for tonight. Okay. All right. So let me start from this. So can we say that an MVP, please put your question. Can you put your question, please, in the Q&A so that it doesn't get missing in the chat? All right. Okay. What time of the day is the boot camp? Okay, it's Tuesdays and Thursdays, 7 p.m. to 10 p.m., just like we had for today, okay? 7 p.m. to 10 p.m. So it's, okay, that person who asked. Someone says, so can we say that the MVP diagram should show the upgrade life cycle or upgrade sequence of so there's nothing like an MVP diagram. I only showed you that picture to explain what an MVP is. So there's nothing like an MVP diagram. An MVP is a product. Is the basic version of a product. So there's nothing like an MVP diagram. All right, I get what you're trying to say. That does the MVP mean that's the initial state of, that product progression? Of course, yes. The MVP is kind of the initial state of, the progression of that product till it gets to, quote and unquote, the perfect state or the standard state we want it to be. So it's that earliest version of your product that actually gives the basic features that we need. Okay. All right. Somebody said, do you have other teachers or just you? Yes, we have other teachers. We have other mentors. We have mentors other than myself. Okay. But for the UK region, I take most of the classes. Please, I would like to know how long the training will take. The training is 10 weeks. Okay. It's 10 weeks. How will I learn from someone like me who is not based in the UK? I don't understand that. Because you are learning on here now, and I'm not in the UK, so I don't understand. And besides, if it's a problem of in the UK or not in the UK, I spent 5 years in the UK, got a £90,000 job in the UK. So I don't understand that question, to be honest with you. You can learn from anybody. It doesn't have to be in the UK. And we understand how the market works. So also there is a valid certificate handed at the end of the yes, for you to get our certificate of completion, which is not the essence of the program. But if you desire a certificate of completion, you have to have done 6 weeks, at least 6 weeks on an active project before you can get us to give you a certificate of completion. Because that's the only way we know you know what you're doing, right? Yeah. Because we are building a brand here. So we're not just hand over certificates to people just because. It's like somebody asking me, oh, can I give you a certificate for attending this class? No. I don't know you. You have not known me. I've not seen you in action. So why would I just give you a certificate? You know, I know we come from this where we glorify certificates a lot. And don't get me wrong, certificates are good. There are some places where certificates are very, very good, right? Like if you're back home, like when I say back home, for those of you who don't know, like I'm talking Nigeria, yeah, certificates are really very, you know, I remember one time they didn't give me a job because one guy came from, you know, from the abroad. He brought his certificate from there, and, you know, we were 3 to get that job. And I didn't get that job because that other guy came with a certificate from abroad, right? So in that place, in that kind of society, there's a lot of emphasis on certifications and things like that. Now, in this part of the world, there is also emphasis on certificates, but for some type of jobs. Let me give you an example. You see, like Salesforce. If you have a certificate in Salesforce, it means that you did Salesforce. Does that make sense? It means that you entered Salesforce and you did things. You can't pass Salesforce exam without doing Salesforce, without entering Salesforce. You can't just read to go and do Salesforce. Do you understand what I'm saying? You have to enter the 2. Does that make sense? Now, those kind of certificates are hallowed. Do you have to do anything to get a Scrum certificate? Do you have to do anything practical? No way. Do you have to do anything practical to get a CBAP certificate? No. Just read the damn book, right? Read the book. Read the book. Be smart. I always told people, if I have a smart guy, okay, grade 12 guy, or he's in grade 12 or grade 13 or something, or A levels, and I give him the Bible guide and he reads it and he's a smart guy, and I give him watermark learning to practice his paper questions, if he goes into the exam, he will pass it. Does that make him a BA? So, you know, let's not put the cart before the horse. Let's put the horse before the cart. That way, you have a smooth journey. In fact, that way you can move. Now, again, back to this certificate thing. There are areas where certificates are hallowed. You need it. Salesforce is number 1. ServiceNow is another one. How do you get the ServiceNow certificate and you didn't do ServiceNow? Or Azure? Or like a Microsoft, you know, certification? You have to go into the 2. Not the certifications that you just have to read 1 or 2, 3 pages. Cram it, go and write the exam, and you say you know it. Is that exam? Is that so? Please don't let us. And I will tell you a couple things about certifications again. You know, like how many certificates have people gotten in the past 20 years? How many people are doing this job right now? And how many people have the certificates? You need to look at the data. Let the data speak for itself, right? So don't just hear people telling you things. Be the guy to go and look at things and discover things for yourself. I always tell my students, if I tell you anything in class, go back outside and Google it. If you see something different, come back and ask me, why did I teach you something different? And I will tell you why. You see, I'll tell you why. You know, knowledge is not exclusive, right? I'll tell you why. You see? So I hope that answers that question. How often do you do the bootcamp? In the UK, we do it every 10 weeks, okay? Every 10 weeks. But now we have a few more lecturers or teachers that have groomed. So maybe we may be doing it more often, like the US region. Like the US region, we have a couple of people, right? Like right now I'm talking, somebody's teaching a class. I don't have to be there because they've been groomed. But with the UK, we're still, you know, grooming people, right? So we take it, make sure that we've done the cohort first before, you know, yeah, when we'll get there. So yeah, I have that question. How different is the BA from the Agile project? Okay. How different is the role of a BA in an agile project from a BA project? It's just the documentations. The documentations and the process is what is different. What you do is essentially the same. For example, like I said, it's not everything I taught in this thing, right? For example, in an agile project, you don't need to produce a BRD. Okay, in a waterfall project, you may need to produce a BRD. Why? Because you do planning ahead of time, right? A BRD, for those of you who don't know what that is business requirement document. All right. So yes, there are differences, okay, but that doesn't necessarily change what the BA does. The BA does is what the BA does stays constant. Is just what he produces at different stages that is different. Okay. In a waterfall project, you're so much focused on documentation. So you do a lot of FRDs, SRS, PRD, and all those Ds, right? All those heavy documentation. In Agile, you want to do things quickly. So, you're just documenting the detailed requirements and moving on, right? So, but essentially what they do is essentially the same. Can you do only product owner without BA, Scrum, etc.? Yes, you can. Yeah, you can be a BA without being a product owner. But these days, it's a bit tricky. Well, on our course, we don't do it differently, right? We do it together. So whether you're doing BA, you will still, if you're not interested, then don't come to class. But you do the BA, product owner, and the Scrum all together. Okay. How different is the role? I think I answered this question already. But I am not available until next month. Okay, somebody's asking, my question is, can I pay for the course now to commit and drive me towards this rich content, but I am not available now until next month or maybe next week or next cohort? A friend referred me here, though it is worth my time. Oh, thank you for the kind words. It's worth your time. Thank you. Okay, so here it is. So this is one thing we do a bit differently because we understand that people go through things. People go through life. Life happens, right? So one of the things that we do here is that you can make a payment for a course. Even those who have the time sometimes come to the course and something happens. For example, not you, but maybe you lose a loved one and you had to travel. And sometimes some people travel for like 2-3 weeks. And yes, we give you the recordings of each class, every class, you get the recordings. But some people are not able to get back on their feet, like continue from where they stopped. Do you understand? Aha. So what do we do to accommodate those kind of people? So one of the things that we've decided to do is that if you've made a payment and committed to that payment without suspending your payment. So what I mean by that is, say you did installment payment, for example, but you did not stop your payment. You continued making payment and you finished your payment, but you were not available. You can come back to another cohort within a year, any cohort. So meaning you can come multiple times to any cohort and you don't have to pay a dime. You just need to fill the transfer form. So we'll transfer you from your original cohort to the next cohort, right? So what that simply means is that you have the opportunity to attend multiple cohorts, because if you ask from many of our students, some of them that even have a job still come to the class. Why? Because we change curriculum from time to time as things change around us. So as the things are changing around us, we are also changing the curriculum. We're also changing the things we are teaching, right? Because you can't get, you do understand? Like you need to change with the times, right? As things are changing, there's a time when you do B and it's okay. Now you have to add a few things. Sometimes we even tell our students, oh, we are doing a Power BI class, come on, because you need data, right? And then we open it up to everybody, right? So just to answer that question, yes, you can take advantage, especially if you want to take advantage of the discount. You can take advantage of it, make your payment, and when you are available to start the course, just inform us and let us know. We will reconcile your payment and everything, and we'll put you in the cohort of your choice. All this should be done within a year, okay? Within a year of your original cohort, okay? So, I mean, we had someone from the previous cohort. She had an issue with her child. She needed to be in the hospital with the child. I mean, how would you tell such a person to pay again for when she had already paid? Do you understand? It doesn't make sense. All right. So that's why we give you the opportunity to come to subsequent cohorts without having to pay that. Now, the only time when you pay an extra fee for joining a new cohort is if you suspend your payment. Because at that point, what you've simply done to us is that we can't suspend paying our staff. We can't suspend paying our developers. We can't suspend paying, but you have suspended and, all right. So it means that you have to pay whatever fine or whatever to, it's either you're suspending your, if you've made we have the terms and conditions, and let me show you. We have our payment terms, so you can read it up, on when you can get a refund, like for most of you that have made payment, if after the first week, okay, you say you're not doing again, we'll give you your refund. So we have all those, because I would rather work with somebody that is ready to work and ready to move than work with somebody that is, that is still double-minded. The people that really make it, that really, are exceptional and eventually land something, are people that have narrowed their mind and said, you see this thing, we die here. We will do it. So if you make up your mind like that this thing, I will do it. I'll get it done. Because again, there's a psychological aspect to these things. Yes, I will tell you that. There's a psychological. I'm not going to sit down here and tell you that, oh, if you're going to do this course, tomorrow you're going to get a job. No, it doesn't work like that. I've seen people who got a job even while they were doing the program. 5 weeks. In fact, Yvonne is the highest paid so far on this platform. He earns about $208,000 from one job. He got his job in the 5th week of the training. 5th week. He was so determined. Now, am I going to sit down here and tell you that everybody's going to get a job in the 5th week? It's a lie. Because I have seen someone like Nkechi. Now, this Nkechi is a real Nkechi. So, no, I know some of you hear this guy that talks about Nkechi, but this Nkechi is a real. I've seen people like Nkechi and Daniel Fowler. It took them a year to get a job. Now, will I say that they were not doing the right things? Maybe for them, that was how long it took them to be able to understand, the dynamics and to help them get into that psychology of getting the job, right? And they eventually got it after a year. I will not compare that person to Olamide, who did not, there are two Olamides, Olamide Shomoye, Olamide Ladipo, or Olamide Shomoye, that did not attend the class, but this girl was so determined. She said, Michael, listen, I will still have to pay my bills, but I cannot come to class. And I cannot leave my job for this thing, but I need this thing. Guess what she did? She paid, but she didn't come to class. She would take the recording, look at it, come back, ask questions on WhatsApp. Okay? After 10 weeks, in the 12th week, I'm not kidding, she got 3 job offers. She went for the highest paid one. And she never stepped foot in class. So now, what of the other people who came to class? But the good thing is that, we have some very good success rate. Now, if you do what I'm doing, okay, if you do what I'm doing and you have 35% of your cohort get jobs, you've tried. Ask anybody around. Yeah, you've done, because the rest of the other people probably, they are going through one of something, they're going through something, and then they will come back later, right? Yeah, because not everybody that starts finishes the race, right? Some of them would, maybe something happened or the other thing happened. But if you have 35% of your class, if you're doing what I'm doing, go and ask around Forget all those fake success stories. I'm not talking of somebody that is the manufacturing success story that does not exist. I'm talking of real. That does 35 is getting it in that has the success stories that I have. That means they're doing something right. So I'm not going to sit here and try and make you feel like this is a walk in the park, or this is something that when you get in today, in the next 6 weeks, you will sit down, cross your leg, and start counting pounds. No, it's not like that. There's work that needs to be done. All right. You need to understand the concepts. You need to know a lot of things. You have to go out there, push yourself beyond your limits. You have to dare to learn. Because even when you go for your first interview, I always tell the students, there's what we call testing the waters. All right. That's when and some people get the job by just testing the waters. So we push them even when they're not ready. Go and do an interview. Go out. So we push the student. Yeah, because you have to face your fears. Some of you have not done an interview in the past 5 years. Some of you were managers and directors. Where you were is condition, they say, make the fish to bend. Okay? Yeah. Just like one of my students who was an FIRS boss. She was like a big time madam. But came to Canada, and according in her own words, Michael, can you imagine? In her own words, Chinelo, in her own words, say, Michael, can you imagine? From an FIRS boss, I came to this Canada to be packing shit. In her own words. But thank God today, at least she's no longer doing that. So some of you may need to, pay the sacrifice of having to condescend, or, the sacrifice of having to come down a little bit. All right. I wrote an article, and I'm just going to read it. It's called, I wrote an article. It's called The 5 Sacrifices of Transitioning to a New Career. Let me pull it up. It's on my okay. Give me a minute. It's on my LinkedIn. I'm gonna find it and then I'll read it to you. Now we are done. I'm only staying here for those that have questions. So if you have questions or you want to listen to my tales by moonlight. But let me just tell you this, and then probably if there are no questions, I'm gonna let you go. Is that okay? Okay, I'm trying to find that article that talks about, I wrote something some time ago. So I'm trying to find it. It's called The Sacrifices of transitioning to a new career. So once I get it, I'm going to read it out to you. I'm looking for it right now. Sorry, I'm still looking for it. I don't know when I publish this, but it would be nice for you to just see, because some people think that this career transition thing, is like a magic wand. It doesn't work like that. Okay, it doesn't work like that. It's not it doesn't work like that. It's not a magic wand. Okay. Okay, I've seen it. It said the unseen sacrifices. Okay, the unseen sacrifices. Let me put it here like this. Give me a minute. It's called the unseen sacrifices of. I'm not going to share my screen. Just listen. I said the unseen sacrifices behind every success story in transitioning to tech. Okay, you will have to sacrifice something to cause that change to happen. I could find a couple quotes online to tell you about sacrifice as a necessary ingredient of success. However, today, my life is the quote I have chosen to present to you. There are certain sacrifices that I personally made while transitioning to tech, and I have summarized it here. Number 1 is the sacrifice of time. The sacrifice of time. Tech does not sleep, and sometimes neither do we. Learning a new skill demands time. Okay? You will have to juggle your odd jobs from morning till dusk and still come back and learn something that you will use in transitioning to the next role. It's exhausting, but remember, it's also essential. Okay? And then I talk about one of my students, Olamide, the same Olamide that I told you about, that said she wanted to transition, but she could not attend the classes because she still needed to pay the bills. So she needed to go to work. And then after work, she will come back and sit down with the recordings for another 2 hours or 3 hours, and then ask questions afterwards. She did that with so much dedication. But guess what? It all paid off. So the sacrifice of time is number one. The sacrifice of your financial resources. Yes, you can get some things for free, but you can't get all things for free. There's some things you have to sacrifice for. They say education costs, but ignorance costs more. So whether it's the books you're going to pay for, courses you're going to pay for, seminars you're going to pay for, you have to invest in your learning. It's non-negotiable. It's non-negotiable. Okay? I personally scrimped and saved for every bit of knowledge I acquired. It seemed daunting, but the return on investment was beyond monetary value. It was a gateway to a new life. And it can be the same thing for you. The third is the sacrifice of your comfort zone. Because stepping into tech may mean that you are stepping out of your comfort zone because you will encounter new challenge. You will encounter unfamiliar tools, the tools that you were not used to. They say, yeah, let's learn Jira, let's learn Confluence, let's learn Draw.io. You will encounter those things. And sometimes it's a whole new way of thinking that you'll be exposed to. It's uncomfortable, sometimes frustrating, but it's also where growth happens. And then there is the sacrifice of immediate gratification. Especially in a world where we want instant results. Listen, patience is a virtue, and that's hard to come by. Your tech journey might not yield immediate results. It's a game of persistence and long-term vision. So you have to celebrate the small wins, but keep your eyes on the prize. And that is why I wrote another article about this six-figure job that everybody's talking about. Six figure. Listen, your first job in tech may not be six-figure. Like the success story we got yesterday was 90K. The guy got 90K. And I said, start with that. At least 90K can feed your family, can pay the bills, can have some extra in the pocket, right? Start with that. And then we'll move into the six-figure with time. Whereas some people start with the six-figure, which is also fine. But in case you're not starting with the six-figure, have a long-term vision for yourself. So there's a sacrifice of immediate gratification. And number 5 is the sacrifice of ego, which was what I was talking to you about. Because sometimes some of you were big boys, were directors, you see, were managers, people were reporting to you. So now you want to start this new career where you'll be reporting to people. You have to, that's a bruise on your ego. So sometimes it's the sacrifice of ego. Starting a new oftentimes, may mean starting from the scratch. You might go from being an expert in one field to a novice in another field. You have to embrace it with humility. Every expert was once a beginner. So your journey will be unique. Your sacrifices will be personal. But the destination is the same, which is a fulfilling career in tech. So remember that every sacrifice you make, whether it's the sacrifice of time, whether it's the sacrifice of resources, your financial resources, whether it's the sacrifice of your comfort zone, or the sacrifice of immediate gratification, or the sacrifice of ego, all those sacrifices is an investment in your future self. So you embrace the challenge, you will endure the journey, you will enjoy the transformation. And as always, I'm here to cheer you every step of the way. Okay? So, again, those sacrifices are real. You will make those sacrifices. I said all of that to say this, that enrolling in a course like this doesn't mean that it's a walk in the park. I say it several times to my students so that they don't get the wrong impression. There's a lot of psychological aspect to it. You have to be mentally prepared, okay, for these things too. Mentally prepared, okay? We've been through that road before, so I won't come here and lie to you. It's not about, putting some, trying to get money out of your pocket. we will survive anyways. I mean, we survived during COVID. We will survive. We will try to survive. Although, yes, we need students to survive, but yes, we will still survive. We still have students that we teach. But this is not about trying to get you to pay some money. It's trying to get you to make the right choice. And this may not even be for you, right? That's the idea of doing this free training, so that you can see it might actually not be for you. It might be for someone. It might even be for your brother. Do you understand? It might be for your brother. You may come to this training now and you just know, this is not my thing. And it's fine. It's okay. It's okay. It doesn't have to be like, but there's sometimes okay, I'll tell you my story. My story was different. My story was not about, can I do it or can I not do it? No. I was pushed to the wall. Like, I had a pregnant wife. I was living in a squalid apartment in the heart of London. I was living with rats. People thought I was enjoying in the UK. No, it's just because I don't tell my stories to people. I was suffering. I was working from 5 to 8. I couldn't continue that life. So whatever it's going to take me to get out of here, I was ready to do it. So you see, for me, it was not a matter of, do I have previous experience or do I not? No, I wanted to get out of that thing, of that not having, of suffering, of doing, working for 2 years from 5 a.m. to 11:30. When will I get a break? For crying out loud. So for me, it was just a matter of, what can I do to just get out and just get some money? So when I attended a training by KG, and I saw the guy talking, I saw people giving their testimonies, and I was like, is this real? There are people buying Porsche after 3 months, and me, I'm here, I'm suffering. What did they learn that I cannot learn? So that was my own point. Like, what did they learn that I cannot learn? What did they do that I cannot do? So that was my own. I wasn't really about, is it business analysis? Is it project management? I was prepared to do anything. In fact, let me shock you. I wanted to be a project manager, but it was in the process of finding project management that I fell into business analysis. And I studied both. But business analysis just happened to happen for me. Do you see? So it was not a question, even if it was data that year, I would still do it. If it was cybersecurity that came to me, that I would do. Why? Because on my mind was about getting something. I wanted to change my destiny. I wanted to change my life. I wanted to change my financial situation. I wanted to move from this poverty, it was killing me at the time. Yeah, it was like a slow death. Like, mentally, I was not balanced. Mentally. Imagine waking up 5 and you're tiring at 11:30, and then you have to stay up again and start looking at and then I was trying to even apply for another PhD somewhere else, so that at least I can, before they pursue me back home. And then imagine I will now sleep around 2 a.m. or 2:30. And that sleeping is not as if my body just shut down and I will just sleep like this on my computer. It's my wife that will now wake me up. And then I have to wake up another by 4:30 again, prepare and get out. I mean, I was like, how long will I continue? That was my own. So yours may not be like that. Yours may be, you have the time to start saying, where is my skill set going to be applied? And does this fit my skill set? I didn't have the time for that. I was just looking for, if it was Forex that came to me, then I would have done it. Do you understand? So, I want you to understand that different people have different motivations for getting into things. Do you understand? For me, it was not because I had a skill set. I was prepared to learn anything at that time, because there was so much pressure on me. There's so much pressure on me. And if you're from, where I'm from, and when you take responsibilities and you have a lot of responsibility for other people, the pressure becomes even much more. Because some don't even understand that you're abroad, but that abroad, not the broad. That abroad, no broad. It's not broad at all. And you understand? They don't understand that. They don't understand that. Right? So, for me, it was not all of that. I just knew that I needed a way out. And maybe this was my way of escape. So when I went through the training, when my friend gave me that money, I just felt like, okay, this is the best investment I could do, because I can go and buy baby food now, or I can go and buy food or buy something, and it will still, but and it took a lot of courage to do it. I borrowed that money from my friend and I paid it. And this is where I am today. Was it that singular training that made me who I am today? Not necessarily, but it was one of the things that made me who I am today. just so you know, right? It's one of the things that made up, because I did my own studies too. It's not as if I was, plus the one that they taught me in the class, plus the practical that I did. I went and did my own too, right? And it's the same thing I expect from students. When we teach you something here, go and do your own, push yourself too. Push yourself. Go and learn more. Add on top of the things that you've learned. You see? That's how to be diligent. That's how to be, to push yourself. All right. Let me see if there are a few more and then we can call it a day. Do you have a package for someone that is already a BA, junior BA probably? Yes, we have a work experience where you work on a project. So if you're already a BA and you think you don't need all of this thing, you want to do practicum, we have the practicum, but we don't have an open batch for now. Okay. So maybe check our Instagram from time to time. We'll tell you when we have the practicum. So you can find it again on our website. If you come here, theskillgarage.com, just go into the programs, you come to practicum. Okay. We've not resumed a new batch. Okay. So yes, we have the practicum for those who want to do just the project. All right. But you need to know your stuff because it's not a training program. You're just coming there to do the project. All right. So yes, we do have the practicum. Okay. For that person that asked. Okay. And I feel I've answered that question about, all right. Thank you guys. I need advanced JIRA training. Okay. Maybe our training is not advanced enough. What exactly do you need in advanced training? Because we teach everything apart from dashboards, right? IK. All right. We teach everything apart from in our JIRA training. We teach everything apart from, so we'll have another free JIRA. We do free JIRA and yeah. So what exactly do you need in JIRA? Is it like dashboards, reports, or do you just need to know how to use JIRA? What exactly? So if it's advanced training, I'm thinking maybe reports and dashboards. Okay, Kanban and reports. So Kanban is it's not that crazy. Okay. So we do some Kanban in our training. Reporting, it's actually dependent on how you on the things you do with JIRA itself. Because if you're creating reports from JIRA, it's dependent on number one, your story pointing, how you track those story pointing on your daily stand-up. Do you reduce it? Do you move it across? All those things depend. Otherwise, you will print a report from JIRA and it's not really, it doesn't come out great. All right. But you can do like a bond, yeah, you can do a bond, like a bond down chart. You can do it separately on Excel. Okay. I can send you for free a template. Just send me a message. I can send you a template for free for bond down chart on Excel where you can track your stuff. So I think that's one of the good metrics you want to track on your report. And then for Kanban, basically, let me just show you my screen. It's going to be quickly. I can show you quickly. For Kanban, I don't know what exactly you want to know in Kanban, right? But I don't think you're the one who create the board. I'm not sure you're the one that creates the board. Are you the one that creates the board? Do you need to create the board? You're not the one who creates the board. Okay, so the board is already created for you. So what exactly do you need to know on Kanban? Because if the board is created for you, then you have something like this. And then everything you're doing is in your backlog. Okay, and probably if you ask your developers and they want to use like a work in progress limit, because Kanban works with work in progress limit, right? You can decide to, so exactly, I don't really know exactly what you need on Kanban. You can decide to fix the work in progress limit for each of the columns on your Kanban board, right? And fix the work in progress limit so that they will decide exactly how many they need. Or if you are getting the Kanban board from, so if you're creating a board, for example, if you want to create a Kanban board from an existing project, so that that project is the main project, and then you are just, taking that. So for example, you have a big project and 3 groups or 3 pods are working on that project and they are all feeding from one part product backlog. Now, for those of you who are new to this, don't even try to think of what I'm talking about. Forget it. you would understand it later. Then you have one main, one main product backlog, right? You can filter from that backlog to create a Kanban for that team. And then you can create another Kanban for another team. Maybe because they're working on different aspects and you don't want them all to use the same board, you can do this. So you can create from an existing project, okay, and choose what that project is, and then you can use other things to filter it out into that Kanban board so that that team can focus on one major broader backlog, but then you're using this Kanban board as a subset. So maybe, I don't know if that's what you're looking for, because Kanban is just straightforward, it's Kanban, right? Except you're trying to do things like this. And then the last other thing that I think is advanced here is jQueries, and you can always get that online. You can learn online, and then you can create your own dashboard views, the dashboard that you want, the different metrics that you want to see. All right. Yeah, I don't think it's a crazy thing. Just, check one or two things online. You can use LinkedIn Learning. There are a few trainings on LinkedIn Learning that are good on, I could check some of them and then send them to you. All right. Okay. All right. So for those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, don't worry. I think this guy is already a BA or something, so he knows what I'm talking about. But for the rest of you, thank you for coming to my pep talk, and I hope to see you next week. For those of you who are looking to make payment, please do make the payment. We have this thing open for you. All right. Take care, and I'll see you when I see you. All right. Bye for now. Bye.